Hey everyone, this is Will Dorsey Jr. of Talk Music Podcast with Will Dorsey Jr. My next guest, my friend, my brother, Dean Dichoso, great producer. And I want everyone to know about Dean. If you live up in the Nashville area, you guys gotta look this dude up. I'm telling you, you want some awesome quality out of your albums? Whoa, check him out. And multi-instrument, like this dude plays everything. I mean everything. Like everything's so good when you listen to this guy. Anyway, I like to call him Dean DiCelso.
Welcome to Talk Music with Will Dorsey Jr.
Every month,
Our host Will is going to interview musicians from around the world and talk everything music. Our listeners range from professionals to recreational musicians who want to learn more about the industry, their instruments, and the community of top musicians. So join us, subscribe, and keep up with Talk Music.
visit us on www.talkmusicpodcast.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Download our podcast on Apple, Google, Amazon, and Spotify.
Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, eRecordStudio, the new way musicians rehearse, record, and share their eRecord sessions on social media. Visit ERS on eRecordStudio.com. Download this amazing app on Google and Apple Apps stores.
All right. Dean DiCelso.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're on, man.
Is this thing on, dude?
Yes. Keep on tapping that. Keep on tapping
Yeah,
that.
how you doing, man?
Dude, so good to see you, dude.
You
So
too.
good to- so good to see you. Man, man, can you I want to let you talk about this. Like how we even met. Like I think I know it's through Guitar Center or whatever, but
Most certainly is.
I want to see what your side of it, how it was.
I'll never forget it. And it's funny you mentioned this because when you called me to do this, my wife was sitting next to me, and she, of course, she knows who you are from DEA and all that, from Dead End Amelia. But I was like, I looked at the first question, and I go, "This is gonna be fun." And I told her exactly what I'm gonna tell you. So I remember it well. Can you fix me on something? Did you work at Hollywood first, or did we just meet straight out at the Sherman Oaks store?
Straight out to Sherman Oaks store.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget it because the moment I went in, I think this is 2005 or 6.
6. Yeah. Okay.
You know,
Okay. Yeah.
I had just bought the house in Studio City, the one you knew very well, and I just remember I had a recording session coming up in the new studio I just built, and I saw you, and I just I remember walking in, and you were hard to miss. I just kept saying in my head, definitely when I'm done looking around this store, because it was my first time to go into that location, and I remember saying to myself, just go find that guy who looks like a predator when I'm ready to talk to him. And you had the long hair, and that's all I said to myself. You look like a cool dude, and man, we hit it off because I remember this. The first thing I said to you was, "Hey, man, you know what? I really love playing. I really love recording single ply heads on snare drums, and I just feel like I'm gonna like blast through these because I'm used to playing on like double plies or whatever." I think that was the first thing we talked about, and then you hooked me up with that. You're like, yeah, it's cool. We'll just get you like 3 ambassadors. I think it was something like that. But it was less about the gear. It was just like, man, I don't know. What I found really charming about it, as I look back on it now, because it has been so long, it's crazy, but is the fact that you and I, like, we had this draw. You and I instantly wanted to talk to each other about our origins for some reason, and I think we went right into it. And I was like, so you're obviously a drummer and blah blah blah, and I just remember saying to myself, and we had a nice talk. It was great. I mean, God knows what we talked about, but I don't know if we made the Jimmy's Chicken Shack references yet or anything like that. But I don't know if we did at that time yet. But
Yeah.
I just remember leaving there going, holy shit! Like one day I want to be in a band with that guy. That's what I remember from meeting you. We had a nice talk. It was a really good conversation.
Right.
What do you remember?
What I remember from it is, I think I remember, of course, I think that same time that you were talking to me, and then I saw you come in another time, but you were going in to see GC Pro, but I think
Yeah.
you had an artist with you, and I think it was the dude from the NXS show. Remember that contest show?
Oh my God! It was no, it was a Rockstar Supernova, right?
Oh, yes. That's what it
Yeah,
was. Yeah.
it had Gilby Clark and Dave Navarro and Tommy Lee. Yeah, it
Um,
was.
I think it was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the singer was Lucas Rossi, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I
we had
think,
a band together.
dude. So
Yeah.
what were you going in to see, like GC Pro, like how'd you get in with involved with him?
Yeah, well, so I went to the GC Pro because no, it's funny you mentioned that because I remember like the obvious choice is to go to GC Pro because rare equipment they helped me out on the price more than the guys in the floor could,
Yep.
that.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I just remember like I would go to GC Pro and I would go, I just want an excuse to, man, fuck it. I don't care if I pay full price. I'll buy heads or whatever down there because I want to talk to William. And I love talking to you all the time. So, but yeah, no, Lucas,
Oh,
so it was interesting, man. I think the way I remember it, like his management spoke to my manager at the time. And I think what was going on, he had just gotten done doing the Rockstar Supernova tour, right? Like,
Okay.
so I think they did a national tour. I don't know if they went into Europe or whatever, but and the band ended up being Tommy Lee. I forget who else was in it. And they got done with the show, and I think he was ready. He was still like everyone else in that band was established. They were on that TV show judging, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think for him it was a matter of like, well, that's awesome, but like, what about me? My musical identity, my path is still fresh, and I just remember getting a reach out from my manager saying, I have a meeting with you to go meet up with someone at the Starbucks. It was the Starbucks where like it was like the one in Encino that was in the open area with like the
Oh,
best was there, I think. Anyway,
yeah. Yeah.
so I didn't really know who I was going to meet. And I just remember my manager going, just do your rock star thing. I go, what does that mean? And he goes, just, wear your stuff. And I go, well, it's every day for me, man. So whatever. So I remember approaching this person, and it was extremely obvious to me who it was because we were somehow dressed exactly the same. We had like leather jackets we bought from Melrose from some Ukrainian girl that we were bartering with. We both had, bleached hair that was all spiky, and I knew who I was supposed to meet. And I was freaked out because I had seen him won that show,
Right.
and he won singing his original song called "The Heart Spin," and the chorus. I was like, "Fuck, dude, this guy's awesome!" It's a full package. So yeah, that's how we met, and then we ended up creating this band together called Stars Down, and we did that for a little bit. That was interesting. Yeah, so that's how we met. Yeah.
Man. Okay.
I guess that's who came with me to see you, or whatever, whatever. Yeah, GC Pro.
Right. Because man, I think I was gone from that store and I didn't see you anymore or whatever. And then another guy called me from that I guess from that store, another drummer, and he said, "Dude, you gotta try to audition for this band." I'm like, "Okay, send me the music. I want to hear it," or you had an ad out on a thing or whatever, and I didn't know who it was at all.
Oh, no
And
way! I think we've
yeah,
talked about this.
yeah. So
Okay,
I never talked to you about this at all.
this is awesome.
This is how I remembered it when I heard Devil. What was that song
Yeah.
called? Devil.
So you've discovered the devil.
Devil.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
that's one of a Dead End Amelia song. Um, and I heard it. I was like, oh my god, who's this band? Like I was like, I gotta get involved in this, and I called the dude back. And I was like, okay, how do I get to like an audition? And this is back in, I think, 2009. Um, was it 2009? Yeah, it had to been around 2009.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
And went in, I talked to you, I think over the phone to your house for the audition. And I didn't put two and two together at all. I knew your name was Dean. That was it. I don't think I even met you yet. Like in that audition, I think you were at your board, and, just getting ready for me to, I guess, play through the song.
Okay.
It was that one and another one. I think it was like
Probably Stranger.
It was
Could have been.
It could have been.
Or Superheroes Die.
I think it was Superhero.
Yeah.
I think I don't know which one, but anyway.
Yeah.
I think, but when you came in the room, after I finished playing, after audition, I was not expecting to see you.
Oh shit. Meaning the guy that had been chilling with you at the store.
Yes. I didn't put two and two together at all that I was auditioning for your band.
Holy shit. Yeah. Okay.
So to me, I thought that was pretty cool. Like I said, oh man, it's like it's Dean doing this. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, that's Dean. So
I probably don't regale the same exact moment, probably because if it was you that walked in, I probably just in my mind went, "There's my drummer." That's the end.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Dude, that was an awesome experience. It was just so strange to me that how things worked out like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just kind of funny that happened. So
right. And by the way, I want to say if people are, if they're wondering about what Dead End Amelia is, it's a band Will and I were in. You can I'm not gonna say the band's dead, but our singer goes solo when the band's on a hiatus, and the point being is people might want to look for it.
Yeah.
In true Krista fashion, she messed up some of her credit cards on the digital distribution, so it came off of Spotify recently. But there's a Bandcamp. We'll get a link to that, I guess, down there. But the Bandcamp still has them. And at the time, there's a lot of transition going on, and I wasn't expecting it a drummer like you. So I was playing on a lot of the recordings. But our second EP, which is God, what a great EP! The Point of No Return. You're playing over that, and I want people to hear that. There's a Bandcamp for it now that will come up on Spotify later. But Dead End Amelia, the Point of No Return EP, it's our heaviest one. It's the coolest thing, our proggiest one, and you can hear William in a light you haven't heard him before if you haven't heard that. As a drummer, dang,
Death Materia,
Oh man, that dude, yeah, man, we had fun on that.
That was like you telling me like it's like I want to go this way on that song, because you wanted to do Candaria type of thing on that. I thought that was just dope. And I was like, man, this dude is you were kind of like my brother. Like we were into the same kind of bands.
100%.
You know what I mean? So I didn't think I would find somebody like this, like
same, bro. It was the same. I mean? Yeah.
So
and, yeah, you'll always be like the most special drummer in my life for that reason. We connected on everything, dude. Like, the best.
Yeah.
How many times did we break into playing random Helmet songs in the middle of fucking rehearsal? You know what I mean?
A lot.
Like,
and Chris is like looking at us two go like, what song is that?
Yeah, and we're like somehow landing all the changes at the end of Meantime and shit. Yeah.
And we were having a blast. We were having a blast, man. Man, okay, let's start getting into some of these questions I have for you, man. Can you tell, I guess, your musician journey of becoming a producer or just playing instruments? Let's go from the top for you.
I appreciate the question. I don't get asked it a lot. Because I tend to put a lot of the energy on the musicians I'm working with, and it's nice to get asked the question.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, so it's really simple. It's really interesting because 1984, is when I started playing classical piano, and I was about like turning 4 years old.
Okay.
And to this day, it's actually still like a primary instrument to me in terms. I don't play it the most, but it's familiar. And the point being is, you know, from the age of like 4 till I want to say like 12 years old, I was strictly only listening to classical music. I ended up really getting into Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, and once I got over, you know, the general fare of like Mozart and Bach and all that, like I realized like I started to get like composers that were like my favorites kind of popping out, like Debussy, Wagner. You know, I started getting really into stuff, and I was strictly a classical music guy, you know, at a young age. And you know, it's funny because there's so much rock history with you and me, and it's like people always ask, well, what's the transition? Well, this is where it gets interesting. So both my brothers are, you know, so they're, you know, I'm the youngest of 3 boys. One's 7 years older, one's 11 years older, and they're both musicians. You know, the one that's older, of course, had his heyday in the 80s and early 90s, and of course, my brother Dustin, who's a major part of my history in terms of becoming part of the industry, actually.
Oh man,
he played electric guitar, and I mean to this day, actually still one of my most favorite guitar heroes. Not just because I was around him, he just has a very unique style. He is in love with harmonic minor. That's geeky conversation for another time. Anyway,
it's all right.
I'm just reminiscing about my brother. But anyway, yeah. So man, William, you're not going to believe this. People don't believe when I say this. From the age of 4 to 12, I absolutely I hated the sound of the electric guitar. I did not understand the fucking purpose of that instrument. It sounded disgusting by itself.
Oh,
you know, it always sounded like an untamed animal that you would never get control of. The feedback, the string noise. I'm like, what the fuck? Who the fuck likes this? Right. I'm a child, of course, but I had my preferences, and I was like, I don't understand. My brother's always going around playing fucking Eruption and shit. I'm like, oh, fuck that. Right. I hate this sound, you know?
Right.
One day, I never forget this. I got my yellow belt for karate that day, and I remember it's in 1992, and I remember I was still had my gi on. I was still sweaty, and I was playing Final Fantasy II on the Super Nintendo.
All right.
My brother Dustin comes in the room, and he like pops over 2 PV practice amps, like these little 8-inch PV Rages, and I still have one. And he pops them right in my bedroom, and I'm like, oh God, what are you doing now? and you know, he's my older brother. He's trolling me all the time, so he's like, just shut up, shithead. Play your stupid game. I'm gonna show you something. And I'm like, oh God, this is where it gets interesting. He, I guess, had just learned how to connect his Boss pedals such that he made 2 different delays at 2 different times. So essentially a stereo delay, right? And they were feeding these 2 amps. And here we go again. He turns the volume up, and I hear the crunching of the string. I'm like, oh God, this instrument. He hits the 3rd fret of the A string. He hits an E. He hits the note C. Feedback starts. I hate that sound at this time. And he starts bending the feedback into a melody. And I was like, wait a minute. That instrument can do that. And that is when I wanted to play that instrument immediately.
Really?
Immediately, because of the fact that, see, I'm on a piano, I'm on a keyboard, and I'm locked to these perfect tones. Guitar, you can bend things and glissando them into semitones and microtones and everything in between. And I understood now the beauty of feedback and what you can do with it, and you can turn it almost into to me it was like, okay, that's the electric guitar version of like a violin or a viola solo, just loud and abrasive. And so immediately I looked at him and go, all right, I get it. And I think that was his plan, because he pulled out a 1975 Les Paul Standard, I'll never forget it, Tobacco Burst, put it in my lap. He goes, you can borrow this. And he taught me how to play. First song I ever learned to play on guitar, electric guitar, is Heart-Shaped Box.
No way.
Yeah, and he taught me that. And of course, which was interesting, and this leads into my history with you at DEA, is Heart-Shaped Box is in a drop D tuning. So I was only learning in that tuning, not understanding it wasn't normal for the electric guitar or any guitar, any 6-string guitar.
Okay.
And so I called my brother and I go, I found out I had a really good ear at this point, and I'm listening to Led Zeppelin. And I go, why does my guitar you gave me, I can't play the same stuff Jimmy Page is playing? And he's laughing. He goes, we're talking on a on a landline while he's in, because it's so long ago, while he's in the university, and he's like, dude, it's because you're in this fucked up tuning. I can't explain it to you. It's called drop D. Don't worry about it. Here, learn something else in drop D. I go, I don't know what that means. And he goes, all right, there's this new video that just came out. It's black and white. There's like a dude with dreads, looks Mexican. He's like rapping. Like, look for that video on MTV. And I was like, okay. And it was Rage Against the Machine, Freedom.
Oh,
you're right.
Okay. Okay.
And I learned it by ear within 2 minutes, just listening to the MTV. And I was like, okay. Then my brother went to Blockbuster Music and he bought me the CD, and I learned it everything by ear from top to bottom, including the solos. I learned everything by ear in less than 2 weeks. And that's when I realized, number one, my ear is crazy. Number two, I had an affinity for this instrument. It was addicting to play. And it made me learn the blues pentatonic scale in D minor very quickly because of Tom Morello. And that set me up. Like, that was so from that point on, I'm trying not to go too long on this, but because it's a rich history. So this is where it gets interesting. I'm 3 months into that instrument. My brother already is a veteran making his badass bands. He's starting a new band, and he says, Dean, do you want to play in this one? And I go, I don't even know what the fuck that means, because I'm 12 and I study Greek mythology and I have no friends, and I play Final Fantasy, and he goes, well, we're going to go to the 3rd floor of our house, our family home. And he brought friends over that played drums and bass terribly, I might say. Oh. But still they're keeping a beat. And we play this really simple riff that he had written, a song we wrote called Unrestrained. And we did it. And I felt, and I know you remember this, I think we all have that moment when you locked in for the first time live in a practice space with musicians. There was a dopamine hit you'll never feel again, right? Like when you lock in with musicians in a band for the first time. And I was like, holy crap, I get it. I'm a fan of this instrument now. I love rock. And I went fucking crazy. So that was the age of grunge and post hair metal. And I went nuts and all that. And the drummer would leave, and I would go to the 3rd floor when he'd go to school for the week. And I'd look at this fucking shitty Tama Rockstar that looked like it had mold on it, with back in the day, the budget cymbals were called, remember, Zildjian Amir?
Oh my, I used to have some.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, right? Because the Amir ones were just metal plates, but the Amir 2s actually were B8 alloy. Very interesting. So drummer nerd stuff, but
exactly.
But he had the Amir 1, so it just sounded like you were hitting like metal plates. I didn't know the difference, and I just sat behind this kit, and I remember I didn't have any reference. I didn't listen to any. I mean, I might have listened to. Yes, we just took a trip to the Philippines, and Undone, the Sweater song, Weezer came out.
Oh, okay.
And how perfect is that for someone to go, oh, well, in my mind, dude, cats, dun cat, the whole song, right? Yeah. So I sat behind that kit, and again, in a much smaller period of time than most people, I want to say within 2 hours, I was able to play through the whole thing with I put headphones on, and I knew which crash left and right. I could hear it, and I also knew, okay, hats here or whatever these things are called, yeah, and then ride here. And then, oh, there's a pedal for the hat. That explains the verses. And I'm learning all this. And that's when I realized, holy shit, I love this instrument, like the drums. I was like, holy shit. I got to this day, I get questions now. Dean, you play so many instruments. What's your, when you're on your own device, you just want to have fun. What is the first thing you go to? No question, I go to a drum set.
Yeah.
So that's my, and you understand. Yeah. And so yeah. And so that was that. And then basically, just to skip through some context, the idea here is, I started then jamming with my own friends in high school that were my age. Because remember, my brothers are quite older. Yep. And we're doing our thing and learning that way, and I'm going to different garages. And my dad bought me a Marshall half stack, and I was carting it around, and my brother or my mom would drop me off with that thing. I'm like ruining the Mercedes leather with that cabinet, like just doing all that. And I realized, so the band ended up doing well with my brother, and we ended up getting you and I are old enough. You remember back in the day, they'd discover us, and they meaning LA would send A&R out to wherever we were. Sometimes could be Baltimore, could be Houston, Texas in my case, and they did. And then we ended up getting called over to LA for showcases, like private showcases, when that used to happen.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I remember we played in a rehearsal space called Leeds in Burbank. We were there for a week. We played for, long story short, what it turned into, we ended up looking at pretty serious record deals like in front of us at the time, and I realized at that time, this is crazy. We had toured, we had played. I mean, my guitar rig and my tone had really perfected itself because, I'm a tech nerd too. So it all came together. My brother and I had already done a lot of professional songwriting through ASCAP for some independent film and TV. So we had a lot of experience doing that. Right. And like all of us did, my brother had a Tascam 4-track. I learned how to use that. And I realized, William, like, as we're about to sign over or make steps that it was going to cement that band, I was going to become a touring guitar player for this band, right. And dude, I mean, the industry had a lot of belief in us, man. I was told that they're expecting me to be some version of the next Jimi Hendrix or the next Van Halen or something because of my guitar playing and all this. And I just looked at my brother and I went, and I was so young. I don't know how I had this clarity. And I went, this must have been late 90s, early 2000s. I probably was like 19. And I looked at him and I go, I'm really sorry about this. It's not going to make sense to you. I'm not supposed to do this. And in his brain, it's probably like, oh God, he's a kid. He doesn't get it. He should. This is like a dream gig. And I go, no, it's not that. I think I'm supposed to look after everyone else's product.
Oh,
I had that clarity at 19 years old. And I was like, I think because I learned these instruments so quickly and so deeply, almost to master level in some cases early in my life, I was like, I think I'm given this talent, whether you call it from God, the universe, whatever it is. I mean, I'm an atheist, but I mean, I still open my mind, and I'm like, I was given this gift, and I don't think I'm supposed to be like on stage, like, gaining experience points to my ego. I think I'm supposed to take care of everyone else. And that's what I started doing. I went to college and I brought that 4-track with me, and I would like rent these little rooms in the dormitories that you're supposed to use for like studying and shit. But I would bring guitar players down there, drum machines, and I started building my my mindset and repertoire as a producer. And when I left University of Texas in Austin in 2002, I moved to Santa Monica and faced the storm, and
wow.
And here's the other thing is that you got to understand, while this is all happening, right? This is the age of tape, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to love this. I'm a big gamer. I still am.
Yep. And, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and back in the early 90s, your parents, it's like Sega and Nintendo released only the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, right? And my mom said, you can't have both, pick one. So I chose the Super Nintendo because the graphics processor was better. But there was all these Sega games I wanted to play. So, but my point is, the studio we would go to record our stuff had a Sega Genesis in it.
Okay.
And the recording engineer, producer that we were working with, he said if I helped clean up and stuff, or maybe even learn and help around on certain things, I'd be allowed to play the Genesis while they were cleaning up after our sessions. So I stayed there to play the Sega, but they would pull me from it and teach me tape machine calibration. They would teach me like little, like, what a patch bay was. And maybe I'd help out with this and that. And that was the beginning. And then from there, through Austin, through a lot of commercial studios there, I would ask to help. I just kind of offered myself as a runner or like a intern type without pay. And I did a lot of that. And then when I got to LA, I faced a storm. Yeah. I lied to Musicians Institute, and I told them I didn't know anything about recording, so that number one, they would take me into the recording program, because number two, after 3 months, they give you full access from 12 midnight to 12 noon to Studio A with the SSL 4000 console in it.
Oh,
you're supposed to go in there at night to practice all your shit.
Yeah.
I lied to them so that I played dumb. Like I didn't know. Like I went to all the classes for 3 months. And by the time the second quarter or semester, whatever started, they gave us access. All the kids in my class were not signing up for it. They were scared of that thing. I knew how to use it. And so I flew a client, and if he sees this, his name is Kazuki. He's a Japanese singer-songwriter in Austin. I flew him to LA, and the record I started while I was still in college, we finished at night on the SSL. And what's funny is the teaching assistant that they left behind to like help kids like patching stuff and what's 10K do and all this shit.
Right.
I would walk in. Like, I never forget him. His name was Joe Testai. I don't know if he still works there. And I go, Joe, I understand that you think I'm going to come in here and practice turning these knobs. I'm going to be working on this console, multi-channel, excuse me, printing, compression, and EQ to Pro Tools, and you're going to assist me. And like I made the teaching assistant assist, and the school did not know what was going on in there. So I finished records, made money to pay my rent in Santa Monica for half a year from that. And then, yeah. I mean, come 2 years later, I meet you, and I'm already producing. And at the time I meet you, I am now working. At the time you and I meet, I am now working alongside. Oh my God, the prolific gods themselves, bless their souls, are both gone now. Yeah. Brian Karlstrom and Dave Jordan. So I start working with them. I open a studio in tandem with Brian Karlstrom on Magnolia in Burbank called Transformer, and that goes fucking wild. And then we open a bigger one on Lake Street in Burbank. And really, man, it was about 2005, 2006. I bought that house and I built that studio, and I said, it's time to go independent. Will LA accept me? Will I have a career? When you and I met, I was scared to go to that level. And that's basically, I think, the story. I tried to make it as short as I could.
Holy shit. Okay, hold on.
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
I'm trying to be cool with your time, bro. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Can you tell people about Brian?
Yeah, Brian. So Brian Karlstrom, bless him, man. That guy, God, one of the sweetest souls in the world. Really humble. So people that just want a quick, like, sort of nutshell to understand. Nutshell. That's Alice Chain song. He is the engineer that worked directly with and under Dave Jordan, producer Dave Jordan. And if you guys don't know about him, I mean, we can bring up Rolling Stones, Billy Idol, Jane's Addiction, both Ritual and the one before it. Jordan did Alice in Chains Facelift with Man in the Box.
Wow.
And then when he's transitioned to do Dirt, the iconic Alice in Chains Dirt,
yeah,
he that's when he got Brian as an engineer, and they stayed together, and they went and made fucking Anthrax, Son of White Noise, White Zombie, More Human. I mean, they just went the most prolific, all the records you and I like love that shaped us. Yeah. Was those two, and so Brian was the engineer for that. And when Brian decided to go independent as a producer, I slotted in and I became an engineer for him. And that was the end of my history and why I record guitar so well, because of him. Yeah.
Can I I'm going to explain this to people. Okay.
Please do.
And I don't think people understand how close you get to sounds, how they play. I mean, you got it. I'm like, this dude's incredible. Like,
thanks, man.
I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, or
I know you're
anything,
not.
I know
you're not.
I'm just being truthful. Like on any instrument, it doesn't matter. Like I'm never, like I had you to even coach me, like on some parts, that I've done with Dead End Amelia or whatever. It was just amazing that how much you understood everybody's instrument. But I also want to no, man. You deserve that. To be. I want to let everybody know that. My next question was, like, when did you figure that you wanted that to be a profession? And did you ever consider anything else besides being like musician or producing?
Not a joke, because I come from a medical family. I even through all this story, the early parts of the story, playing with my brother, I actually, because we're all doctors and nurses in the Dichoso family, and
Man.
I wanted to be. I just looked up to my dad and my older brother, and I wanted to be a doctor too. I wanted to be a physician, but I had a problem with live blood. I learned that through different ways, and I had a problem. Not if I get cut, but just like the volumes of it and the pressure of a live, subject under surgery, whatever.
Yeah.
So I for the longest time, and people think I'm joking. It's not a joke. I actually wanted to be. I wanted to be a coroner. I wanted to be a medical examiner, and
Really?
yeah, because I was fascinated with the biology. Excuse me. I was fascinated with the biology of the human body, and there would be no live blood and all that stuff. So I'd be able to work on it and learn and contribute to the knowledge, the general knowledge of medicine. But then I found out that it was it was a because of the nature of the job, it's a government subsidized income. So there's not the same what do you call it? Horizontal ladder climb of income you can get as a general physician. And so that's when I said, maybe I should do something else. And I thought I was just going to be an audio engineer and kind of shut my mouth.
Right.
You know my personality well. I don't really shut my mouth. And yeah.
I don't mean to laugh, man. I'm sorry.
It's good. And it's funny. It's true. I get it. I'm old enough now to look back at myself and God, I'm a dick. I'm surprised that people still want to work with me. I realized that plus, all those talents I had, again, my ear that led me to do things like understand the instruments and the rhythms and the tones. Like it just became obvious after working with Brian and that and he encouraged me too. And bless him, he looked at me when I was like 25, straight in the eye, and he goes, and it's so funny because I can say this now, we're not going to get in trouble, me and him, but we had just drank at a bar across the street of our new studio in Burbank, and we stole a bunch of glasses because we kept putting them in his cargo jacket. We were drunk, and he looks at me, and he had polished off like a bottle of Patron, and I had polished off a bottle of bourbon, but we were clear enough to talk. And he looks at me. It was he and I bonded a lot, between sessions at night. And he looked at me. He goes, he had a nickname for me. He called me Kyler, and he goes, "You know what, Kyler? Listen, you're supposed to go do this on your own." He's like, "You already get better drum sounds than me and Dave." And I'm like, "Okay, that's coming from that team."
Oh,
and
wow.
He goes, he said that to me, and he goes, "Also, do you know what really made me want to work with you when we first met?" I go, "What?" He goes, "Do you remember what you brought into me?" I asked him to master a metal record. It sounded very much like Pantera. It was a Japanese artist called Divine Era. And that's how he and I met, was I asked him to master it. Anyway, so I'm with him, and he goes, "You got these tones on that guitar that blew me away." And this is the guy that still to this day is looked at for the iconic tones of Dirt.
Yeah.
Right? And him and Jerry Cantrell and that whole, like, God, I mean, just anyone that's listening now, conjure up the sound of what's that? Dun 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 dun.
Yes.
What's that song?
Yeah. Oh my God, them bones.
What's wrong with us?
Them bones. Bones.
Yeah, them bones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Think of that tone. And so, like, he tells me, he goes, "When you came to me and you brought me that, and I heard your guitar tones, and he goes, 'Do you remember what happened?' I go, 'Yeah, I do remember what happened.' He goes, 'I asked you how you made those tones.' And I go, 'Well, I don't own a lot of analog equipment. I'm still new. I used this shitty DigiDesign, the company who made Pro Tools back in the day for you young kids, DigiDesign interface. And I wasn't obviously able to get the saturated tones from microphones on guitar amps that, my mentors were getting. Right. So the way I got around it, I would use extra microphones on extra speakers to fill out the saturation you'd normally get from the transformers and the tubes from like really good gear. And I told him, and he goes, "I was pretty sure that you were going to put me out of business because with the tones you were getting with a cheap interface." And I was like, "Dude, that's like," he like hit me when he said, my heart went heavy, Right. Yeah. And he goes, "You're supposed to go out on your own and do this." And that, when he told me that we did get somehow drunk again immediately after that. We ended up playing AC/DC together on 2 guitars, so we fell asleep at the studio. But he said that to me, and that told me I might have a chance. I think I'm going to take LA on for real now, like not just go work for people. I'm going to like say that I'm available and do it. And that was one of the scariest like things of my life.
Damn.
When I took on Dead End Amelia, Krista was a client, you know, and and she convinced me, you know, to be in the band. And I was done with that with my brother. I was, you know, I'd already seen a lot of that. And I didn't want to do it. And she convinced me, and I obviously I said yes. Because I loved her, and then you got involved, and now with you involved, I'm really in now. Right. So it's like, you know, and what a time we had. But the thing is I also knew, you know, because I kind of mastered social media too at the time, and like I knew that being involved in that band, the tones I was getting for it, how cool it was also a certain kind of calling card too. So I kind of combined it all, and that's what built the career from LA. And so no medical examiner now.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
I was just about to ask, you know, like, would you focus more on, you know, being a musician or producing? But I see you do both, but I don't know which one is your, you know, like you focus on the most.
You mean in terms of getting hired to work, you mean?
Yeah, to work, or, you know, like on your free time.
You know, it's funny, Will, these days, and I'm going to bring up our age again, and because because you know what, and I do it. I mean, it is funny, but I do it also kind of to pat ourselves on the back. We said something off camera earlier. Yeah. We're still working. We're blessed.
Yes,
you and me.
We are. Yes, we are.
You know, and you know, and I think we're both playing better than ever. I watch you all the time, and you know, yeah. And well, my point is, like, the one thing I do enjoy, even though I take much less income for it. I do take, I mean, I have to do the production job as a primary because it's my primary job, and it takes care of my life and all that. But I do take on playing as a session musician or live guy because for 2 reasons. Number one, I hire so many people these days to play on records that I don't play much anymore during production. Yeah. I will step in every now and then if I need to save money. Like I can't hire a drummer. I'll go play, you know, and I'll wear 2 hats. But like when I get hired and I go on tour with bands that I like or whatever it is, I take it because not necessarily for the money, because there isn't a lot in it for a lot of the indies, but it keeps me sharp, you know, like, well, because, you know, we always know how to ride the bike, and, you know, like, I mean, you know that classic thrash beat, right? Yep. Like, let's be honest, if you and I never saw a drum set for like 7 years and we sat on that kit, we're going to play it exactly like our bodies remember, but we will have instant lactic acid. It will be bad. We will, like, you know, our endurance will go to shit. Yeah. And so I take on, you know, session musicianship and things like that so that it holds me accountable and keeps me sharp on the instruments. And I'll do it all. I'll take bass, you know, drums, guitar, you know, keys, whatever they want me to do. And, you know, and multiple styles just to make sure I'm limber, you know, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Man, what was your okay, let's go into like some session work. What was like some of the highlights as a musician or as a, you know, as a producer, like whatever you've done so far? I mean, like, can you name some of the highlights that you've been working on?
Man, I mean, there's so many of them, but I mean, like, I just remember, so I got I ended up producing a band, a 3-piece band, called To Whom It May, and they're from Houston.
All right.
And I did that record right when we moved, like, you remember 2016, and I forget how they met me, but Jonathan Jordan, the primary of the project, called me up, and he loved my work from something else. I don't know, but he asked me to do the record. Anyway, the band's called To Whom It May. That record's called The Great Filter. And fun fact, To Whom It May is still very active, but Jonathan Jordan is the singer, is now the guitar player for Wolfie, for Wolf Van Halen.
Oh, yeah. Damn.
Yeah, so he's the guy with the beard with all the PRSs with one pickup in him. Yeah, so anyway, so I did that record, and it was great, man. You know, it has flavors of Chevelle and Carnival, but 8-string guitar. It's really fun to do. Yeah, and then they went on tour with Candlebox. Candlebox heard about me through them and their record, and I got hired to do the Candlebox record, Wolves. Yeah, and that was fun for obvious reasons. I'm a big fan of Kevin Martin. That's like one of our greatest rock singers still alive today, living legend, man.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, God, just to see him in action, by the way, was inspiring. Kevin Martin, from the singer of Candlebox. But anyway, so I did that record, and I think like a highlight for me was like I was then when we were allowed to work again in COVID, I went to produce another indie rock record for this woman called Amel Rose in Bristol, United Kingdom. So I was over in the UK, and I just remember that while I was working on her record, Candlebox releases Wolves, the record, and dude, it was you'll understand this, dude. I just remember like fucking opening my social media in the morning, and here I am having my English milky tea, right. and I'm just sitting there like out in the city center of Bristol, and dude, it's like that record, like the graphic for that record is just plastered on every LCD screen in Times Square, and even the long one, right? And I was like, holy shit! So that was a cool highlight. That was cool. Another one of my favorites, man, I would say, is even back in 2010. Was working on. I was the chief engineer and a musician that played on FeFe Dobson's her latest full release, actually, which is the record called Joy, and that was really cool because she was coming from like a place at that time where, you know, we're still fresh off the Vines, the Hives, you know, like Juliette Lewis was doing the beginning of that indie band she had, you know, so there was, you know, Franz Ferdinand, all that stuff was going down, and she was coming off that vibe. And so I was the main engineer for that. We did the whole record at my house in Studio City, and I played a lot of instruments on that. I played drums a lot. That was a highlight. Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few. You know, I mean, one of my biggest highlights of production, I still think to this day, is the stuff we did together in Dead End Amelia.
Oh, man.
Really unique stuff there, because I was allowed to do whatever I wanted, and I kind of made an identity. I would say that's a few of them. You know, I mean, yeah.
Damn. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Okay, since we're going into like recording in session mode, was there any like I'm sure there was a lot of like singers or bass players, you know, especially bass players. And I'm just going to say this, and I hate to say this because I know a lot of producers like it wasn't the right feel, or the song wasn't ready. Would you make them redo that song like over and over again? And I know that's not even part of our question thing, but
no, that's good. You know, but I want to make sure I answer it. You're saying if a musician came in, or you know, maybe bass player, whatever, and it didn't feel right, would I like run them down and do it over and over again? Is that your question?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, of course I would, but I mean, I'm not the type that you got to remember, right? I'm a traditionalist, so my brain still works as if. You'll totally appreciate this. My brain still works as if we are in the age of tape. And so like, okay, the client that he was just here, he just left. He just went back to the UK a few days ago. Right. I'm producing a record now for an artist called Billy Driscoll from Bristol. And it's very Americana. Like I want to say like Americana country meets shades of like Daughtry kind of thing. Is what I'd say.
All right.
You know, and he was just here, and he was very appreciative. He goes, man, you do things very different. Well, that's to him. He's younger. He's 10 years younger than me. All but my brain works very traditional. And what I mean by that, just for people who need to understand what that means, meaning my brain comes from the age of tape. When Will and I were spring chickens and we had to go record a record, you know, when Pro Tools didn't exist and all that, you know, those recording studios that were down the street from your house or wherever you lived or whatever we were doing, man, they were the only places to record professional anything, right? Yeah. And you couldn't do it at home. That's for sure. Like the quality it was needed, number one. Number two, you know, there was a discipline to it because those places were expensive. They're up to $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
And that made sense because you're paying for tape, you're paying for the engineers. It needed a full team because there was no computers to help. And that here's the thing. Back then, guys, no editing, no tuning.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that meant that when guys like me and William were younger, we're in our bands, we had to rehearse for weeks, sometimes months before even one dream of a downbeat for that $100 an hour, in that studio. So my pre-production process, William, to get into that, to answer your question, I'm trying to get as direct as I can.
No, you good. You good.
My production process does take full advantage of the computers because the pre-production process is the time where I root out the fucking week. And I'll be honest, I will run them through take after take because the hard drive will allow it. Because again, history kids, you try to record. Let's say we record a full band, and William said bass player. Oh, that's a good one. You try to record a bass guitar on that one track on that tape over and over again. That magnet is constantly fucking up the other tracks around that bass track, no matter what. So you're screwing shit up. You keep running that bass track on that tape. But okay, in pre-production, because I know you kids are young and you don't have discipline with this stuff. Sorry, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Then you guess what? In pre-production, I will run you dry. And if you're not getting it in that like 10th, 12th take, either you're going to go become a whole different human being as soon as fucking possible. I'm not paid to wait for that, by the way. Or I'm replacing you. Sorry. Because
just about to ask that.
Yeah, because when you hire me to look after your dream product, let's say, I'm going to go through as many bodies as I have to, even if one of them is yours, to get to your dream product. You signed up for that. When you signed the contract and you paid the deposit, I said those very words to you, and you signed up for that. My product speaks for itself, by the way, and we get there. And yeah, dude. So I think you were going to get there. I was just going to say, absolutely. If it's needed, I will replace them. If the band wants to put me on a retainer, to wait, or if we want to change the payment schedule and I'm no longer there to get takes, I'm there to watch you fucking rehearse. Yeah. I'm going to make you an overage fee for every hour to watch that shit. Well, it's only fair.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. Like, people need to do the fucking homework. Period. Yeah. I was just gonna say, how many times have you replaced someone on a recording session?
Oh, geez. Like in like the whole career?
Yeah, like, I mean, have there been a lot, or have you had to actually go do it yourself?
Yeah. So how many times? I mean, obviously in the 30 years, I've been a producer for 30 years, but okay, fine. Let's say in the nearly 20 years I've been doing it as a producer, that's a hard one. I'm not pausing because there's like a million of them. I'm pausing because, there wasn't many of them. I would say per year. In the beginning, like when I was more forgiving because I needed the job, I needed the work. Yeah. I wasn't doing it as much. Sometimes I would ghost play, like I'd leave the amp on. Yeah. I'm not gonna tell you who it is. Any of you are watching, fuck you. Fuck you. I ain't saying it. Right, eat shit. Yeah. I bet you know who it is. If you're watching this, probably you. All right. Anyway, I mean, and listen, that goes never did it to William ever. Don't need to do it to William. William's a better drummer than me. Anyway, so it's true. So no, the thing is, right, is like in the beginning when I was more forgiving, obviously I let that happen. I didn't want to say it out loud. I didn't want to have a reputation like that. Yeah. But yeah, man, there was a point in time when I had to realize that if my career was going to change, and my rates needed to go higher. I needed to get more respect. I needed to kind of become that guy. Yeah. And I started to, I mean, obviously I'm not replacing people if they're in bands, but definitely, man, I would say like every like 2 or 3 months, there was at least a handful of like personnel replacements on records where, those musicians, we just have to tell them. Maybe it's me saying, or maybe it's the primary artist saying that hired me,
Yeah.
listen, this is how it has to go, and then you're going to have to learn it from here when we go live. Some of them, it caused them to leave the band. They realized they shouldn't be doing this. Some of them, they really picked it up and they came and recorded the next record and did it better than I could have, to be fair.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if they hired me again or whatever, right? So,
Right.
And I saw them, so that's for sure. But no, I have no fear doing that because again, the product is number one, right?
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I mean, so a handful of times every few months, I think. These days, in working in Nashville, we have the most top-notch musicians here, and there's like no such thing. I when I moved here, I intentionally did it to throw myself down like 10 notches. I have to re-earn my place, I feel, here, which I love that challenge.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, even as a musician, because these guys, they look so lax, and they wear their cardigans, some of them, and they seem like the type of people that bring typewriters into coffee shops. You're like, that guy's weak, he ain't gonna play good. You put them in a studio, and whether they're sight reading fast or not, you're just like, oh my God, I see why you work here in this town now. Like they're just like, blow you away. So one of my biggest motives, William, to moving and working here, one of them was to be around people I never had to replace again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Man,
was to be around a higher. I wanted to be around a lower probability of having to be that guy here, and it's working. Did that answer the question? That
answered my questions. Thank you.
Because
I was man. I was just wondering. I was just curious, about that, because I mean, I know that happens, during recording sessions or whatever. But I wanted to switch up and get back to you real quick. But I wanted to know something that's been on my mind.
Sure.
What did you listen to when you were a kid, growing up? I know you were listening to classical music, but what other bands were you into? I already know One's Helmet, but what else? What else were you into?
Yeah, and by the way, one of the reasons why Helmet was such a big one, obviously, I love the material. The groove was different and stuff, but it's because they were in drop D also, and that guitar was in drop D. I didn't know how to tune it to standard yet, so I ended up learning in the meantime stuff after Rage because it was in drop D. So
okay,
to connect that. But I was just gonna say, I mean, that's an awesome question because I love how you phrased it because it's better than what's your favorite. That's ridiculous. That's impossible.
Yeah.
I will say, Stone Temple Pilots was a huge one. Alice in Chains was a huge one.
Yeah.
Jane's was a huge one. What's really weird is I respected and understood Chili Peppers, but my brain wasn't ready to enjoy it for me yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Till way later.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was gonna say something kind of weird about it. Fuck it, I'll say it. It's because when I learned about guitar tones and stuff, I didn't understand how to respect the clean funk sounds yet. I thought the electric guitar was supposed to be heavy all the time.
Yeah. Especially for Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah. So like, Frusciante is fucking sick, dude. Right?
Yeah,
but it's like I hear him play, and I'm like, turn on the distortion pedal or play an acoustic. I didn't get it. I was young.
Gotcha.
The ones that really tipped me over the scale, where I really kind of found where my heart really wanted to live, not even necessarily as a musician, but just like as a listener, was when I discovered, dude, I mean, and this string will make total sense to you. Like, I discovered King Crimson at the same time I discovered Dream Theater, and I went to Crimson and Zappa more than I wanted to get into Dream Theater because Dream Theater sounded too polished and too like librarian to me at the time.
Gotcha.
And here's a geeky drummer thing I just want to say. I mean, you're not going to be able to hear it. I would tap it out, but okay, like Portnoy. I've said this to you a million times. I'm like, Portnoy, you're fooling everyone else, but not me. You only sound like you're playing fast because you're doing that fucking 2 hits of the snare, left, right kick thing. Okay.
Yeah.
It's all you have, you fuck. You're not a real fusion drummer. Shit. Fucking Kolayuta could do that with one hand when he's half dead. That's where my head was at with Dream Theater. Listen to King Crimson, listening to even Rush, and I remember something about you while I was listening to Rush. While I was listening to Rush.
Oh, what you got? What you got? What you got?
While I was listening to Rush, William was getting into this.
Oh,
this is William's band. When I'm listening to Rush, he's listening to the Kiss. Just saying. I know this part of his history.
Yes, yes.
By the way, fun fact, we'll get into this later. Gene Simmons gave this to me.
Bullshit. No way.
Yeah, it's another conversation. But but I was gonna get back. So Rush did it, and then holy shit, I started veering off, and like Tool Undertow happened.
Oh,
right? And I was like, whoa, that is a total different approach to this, that Tool Undertow happened, and God, this band in 1994 made me want to become a mixing engineer, and it introduced me to my top idol mixer of all time, still to this day. I got to FaceTime with him somewhat recently. That was awesome. A gentleman called Andy Wallace, and he mixed this record. Yeah, he mixed this record for a band, and I love the band. They're called Shudder to Think, and the record was called Pony Express Record. It was released in 94. The single was called X French T-Shirt. Holy shit. The singer was Craig Wedren was so operatic, but they wrote these like heavy jazz infused, like odd meter show tunesy fucking, like, I don't even know how to say it, but it was hard hitting, and it something about it like satisfied that prog sort of like part of me, parts of the Helmet part of me, like it was all that changed everything. So I mean, that's I could go on from here, but basically when I started hearing progressive takes on rock, I didn't leave all the grunge I loved. I mean, I could show you now. There's in my tracking room, there's loads of Fender guitars. The 1957 Mustang I have the same color of the one that Kurt Cobain used when they did that big concert for In Utero, that when the Germs guitar player Pat Smear was one of his first times to play with them. And he had this guitar. I have the same exact one. I'm a huge one of the biggest Nirvana fans. I idolize Kurt, that and as you can see, I'm trying to be short with this. I'll just say one last thing. I'm a huge Beatles fan, and if anyone out there says you're not, you're a liar. That's it.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. Even the bands I was into, Kiss. All right, let's go back there. Yeah. I know they were influenced by Beatles. Come on, like everyone. There would be no us if not that. Nope, it wouldn't.
Yeah,
it wouldn't.
Yeah,
and that explains like some of your like guitar tones. Especially
it does
in Dead End Amelia. Especially like the Sound of Awakening, because I don't know why this song is like stuck in my head. It's called "You're Not Alone."
Man,
that guitar tone, I don't know why I keep on thinking about the guitar tone in that song. Can people still find out that song?
Again, all this stuff will be back on Spotify really soon, but for now you can find all of this on the Dead End Amelia Bandcamp.
Awesome. Thank you for plugging that. But You're Not Alone to me is like
a 7-minute song that.
Oh my gosh, man. It doesn't feel like it at all. But the guitar tones in that, even the bass is as well. Is a mixture with those two instruments like that, the way you played that. And by the way, I'm telling you, this dude's incredible. He played everything on that record. But I appreciate it how like soft it began, and then how much heavier that it got towards the end of that song.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
So beautiful. because me and my brother would talk about this record, and of course my brother is just all about how you mix. And same here. I love the way your sounds are. It's just
Thank
incredible.
you.
Um,
Appreciate that,
but
man.
but dude, you're not alone, man. I'm like that song, and how'd you get Krista to sing like that?
You know what? There was a point in time, and it started. It started at the song "Death Materia" that Will's playing on the second EP, "The Point of No Return," also on the Dead End Amelia Bandcamp, where I taught her how to use vocal fry. You know, was the first thing. How to do the scream without sounding like you're screaming.
Right.
And I taught. That's why she does those awesome screams in the middle eight of Death Materia. That you know they sound good. And that moment in that record, which is the one before Will's talking about, you know, that's what she went. Oh my God, I didn't know my voice could do that. Which is also, by the way, one of my biggest kind of what I bring to the table as a producer
Right.
is I can hear a vocalist and know what's left in their batteries that they don't know. And I knew she had it in her, and I pulled that out of her. And then basically once we got to "You're Not Alone," and look, here's the deal. I was bringing up, you know, drinking whiskey and stuff as a funny thing earlier, and it still is. But Krista had this you know, we know Krista. We both know she's small, right?
Yeah.
And I could never understand it. That woman, small as she is, you know, could match me whiskey for whiskey. And we were doing that song, and we were sipping. We're not doing shots. We're not like partiers, you know, like
Yeah.
we're sipping, we're smelling like there's, you know, it's just, I don't want to paint the wrong idea. We're enjoying it. We're alone in a safe place in my studio, in my home. So it's all good. But, you know, we were writing for the end of that song where it's like, she's like, it's like, the song, the riff's like dun get done, da dun get done. Then she goes, "Let me," and she's all high. Let me take over, and it's all like, you know, crumply and shit.
Yeah.
Like she brought some of the knowledge that I gave her from Death Materia from that record, and then combined it with her melodic voice. And she didn't have any inhibitions because, you know, we were so a little sauced up on the bourbon, and we wrote it, and it was one of those like. I had to keep the vocal from pre-production because we were never going to get that character again, kind of thing.
Right. Okay.
It was actually this microphone, and she was holding it while we were writing, and I was like, no, we're never getting that again. So, and of course, she's able to reproduce it with the passion and how new it was from the message of the song. You know, we found it together from me starting the journey of that vocal tone with her on the second record.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you find other singers like that too, or you know, like that you can get the most out of them?
Man, even the ones that are well trained, you know, even singers that are famous that I've worked with, where they have like a really impressive catalog. You know, they'll come to me and they'll find new voices. You know, with me, I don't put myself out there as a professional vocal coach or anything like that, but I have an extreme understanding of you know, the usage of like, you know, the diaphragm, breath control, fry vocal, screaming without damaging your voice. And you know, I tend to know when a singer's in there. I keep looking at my tracking room because I'm like imagining. I tend to know when they have a lot left than they realize. Sometimes it's just because there's nerves involved. Sometimes they'll hear it. So sometimes they'll hear it in their head and they'll go, "I'm afraid to try to go there," you know. And some for some reasons it makes sense. Like, I don't want to hurt my voice, or I'm afraid it'll come out sounding like shit, and everyone that's in the control room will laugh at me, or any combo of those things. There's a great example of this, by the way, and if you want to cut to it at some point, I'll give you guys a link.
Oh, sweet.
Amel Rose made a documentary, like a 4-minute documentary. You don't have to do the whole thing, but there's a moment she talks about. She actually narrates it, where we're doing this song for her. It's the "You're Not Alone" of her first record I produced in the UK. The song is called "Out of the Woods," and it's an epic one. It has a lot of movement, like You're Not Alone does. And at the very end of the song, she's screaming this line that I forget exactly what it is. A very powerful lyric. And she originally in the indie sort of sad girl style was doing it false. She's a very nice husky voice. She was originally singing it in falsetto, and it was really cool how it was against this heavy riff, and there was the dichotomy was cool. But I just looked at her and I go, look, we're at the end of our night. We have no more vocals to record for the day. I need you to try to sing that like with the passion that you really mean it, one octave higher than you're used to. You have it in you. Trust me. And she actually highlights this. I'll give you the link to it.
Okay.
And she does it, and you see her face. She hears her own voice in the cans, and she freaks out. She goes, I did not know I was capable of that. Fucking passionate end to that song. If we never did that. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
so
man.
I find it a lot. I find it a lot in a lot of singers, if they have any left. Some come to me, and I'm learning something new from them. But in most cases, I can tell just by being around you, talking to you, listening to your vocal cavity by talking. Maybe I'm jamming with you, maybe we're jamming a Britney song in the living room or whatever, and I can hear, and I save that data for myself when it's time. And I know when to pull out, the extra energy or demons in their closet they didn't know they had,
So you actually study them when they don't even know it.
100%.
And just by hanging out with them.
Just by hanging out. Yeah. And you just listen to them when they talk, sing. And I know when I'm dealing with someone that they don't realize there's a whole other library of sounds in them that's hidden away. I can tell 100%.
Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, eRecordStudio, the new way musicians rehearse, record, and share their eRecord sessions on social media. Visit ERS on eRecordStudio.com. Download this amazing app on Google and Apple apps stores.
Yeah. Let me ask you this other question, another thing about producing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like you're writing a song. Do you think about lyrics first, or you think about the song first? The actual. Oh, go ahead.
You mean like the music or lyrics first? You mean?
Yeah. Which one comes up first? Like, I know some artists rather have lyrics first, and you build it around that. Which one is better for you? That if the music's great, then you can put on these awesome lyrics on top of it, or the lyrics are badass and then you try to match that, with the lyrics.
Yeah. Awesome question. And actually I can answer this one quite quickly. I'll first start by saying that, okay, the band you and I play in, Dead End Amelia. Okay. So upon first listen, if people, so Chris and I are the primary songwriters. And I'll say, if people didn't know us and they just listened to the record, you're basically, to me, it sounds like it sounds the way I described it once. I was like, these are Paramore fans that listen to a shitload of Deftones in a perfect circle. That's what I tell people, and that's what it sounds like to me sometimes.
Right.
Her pop voice.
Yeah.
Well, here's what's interesting. In that particular case, believe it or not, most Dead End Amelia songs, most of them, actually started as a lyric and vocal melody first. And because Krista and I are such big like R&B fans, we would actually sing them in like an R&B style to each other, and I'm like grabbing an acoustic and I'm like playing like Babyface stuff, or Usher licks like under some of this, and I'm not thinking of big writing Crash and all this. Some of the beats in my head are just like, I'm thinking of neo soul, R&B, and we first hear it like that because it's not a joke. For some reason, she and I always hear everything as a Janet Jackson tune. I don't know why. We're both big fans of Janet,
right?
And because we know where Dead End Amelia is going, we would then adapt it. But back to your main question, it's really dynamic. Like so I'm gonna answer it two ways. When I write a song, for me, whether it's like my own product or if I'm writing for, you know, something else, maybe a video game or a commercial or whatever I'm doing it for, another artist, it can happen one of two ways. You know, sometimes there's a riff in one of my voice memos that I'm like cooking an omelet and I'll hit play on it and I start singing a hook to it, you know. And sometimes it's the hook. It's a hook comes out of my mouth first.
Yeah.
And if I think it's a girl, I'll just like remember to tell someone to sing it with a different voice later or whatever. But yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, they both there's no preference.
Okay.
They both yield. They both either approach, meaning starting with lyric and melody first or starting with music first. They will yield a different sort of approach because if you start with music first and you're left to your own devices, you tend to repeat a lot of what you do, you know, especially if your mind is in brand, so to speak, for a product. But you know, someone like Krista, who is a natural, you know, a musical, she doesn't know anything about music theory, but she's a natural, and so she'll sing passionately first without worrying, is it in her register or not, right? And what's fun about that is that it forces, say, me on a piano or a guitar, whatever I've got nearby to accompany it, to start writing music for it.
Right.
Maybe she's in a key that I'm not comfortable going to those frets or those chords all the time. So it forces me to find new voicings that make the music way more imaginative. I mean, you got to think about going from Stranger in My Home, which was obviously started as a pop chorus, and you think about that versus, say, Deaf Materia, which is, she was singing about, I'm not going to say who it is, but she was singing about a family member who was troubled with addiction. Let's just put it like that. And she, I think one day she just out of the blue, she was just like, you are da 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 da, and you know, any piece of music can go with that.
Right.
I could write ragtime to that. I could write R&B to that. I could, you know, but for some fucking reason, when she did that day, I like went and I grabbed a fucking guitar and I was like, dun 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 dun, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what the dun dun you want, and it had that drive, you know. And that would have never happened if it was music first in that case. So that would be an example, you know.
Damn.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it
Yeah.
does. It does a lot, you know. I was just going to say, you know, like, how do you know, especially with her, how you know when a song's finished?
You know, this answer will go across anything I do. So, no, really, it's easy. Like this goes across any of my production. This goes across anything we write, anything I co-write. Again, I remind you that I come from the old school, so my brain is constantly in a like sort of strange calculated abandon, as one way I'd put it.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, like, I know there are constraints to this tape machine. We cannot record 10,000 times on this.
Yeah.
I know there's passion in this artist. I need to find a way that we fill in all the blanks for the creativity while also not going past a certain point, beating a dead horse or something, you know, whatever analogy you want to use. And look, I wish there was a more theatric answer for this. I just know. And I just know, and then I walk away. It's done. I don't revisit, commit, move on. I just know. And you know, sometimes there's a thing or two left. Like, you know, I'm obsessed with tambourines.
Yeah. I do.
You know, like that tends to be the thing that's left. And I'm like, oh, that needs a tambo in the choruses. That's it.
Right.
You know, and that, yeah, I just kind of know. And I think a lot of that has to do too is when I decided to be a producer independently and work for people. I think the thing a lot of us as artists need, because when I'm in artist mode, I need this help too, is I tend to like to be someone, I like to consult very deeply with you before the project begins for obvious reasons. What's the sound we're going for? You know, what's the vibe? What's the message? Obviously. But what I do is I like to create the light at the end of the tunnel. And I like to, that we all agree on. So we all see the same light, its color, its texture. We see all the silhouettes in that light. And I never start a downbeat of production until we're all looking at the same picture at the end of that tunnel. Okay. That's number one. Number two, I try to make it to where the closer you get to the light, it's tangible for the artist. We all know we're near the end.
Yeah.
And I tend to make the environment such that we hit stop on the space bar, and I want to look back in the room, and everyone just goes, "Fuck."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? and that's when you're done.
Wow. Wow.
You know, I try not to be dramatic about it, but that's literally how it goes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh man, that's includes songwriting as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You
I mean,
know,
all of that.
yeah.
Same approach to everything. You know, create the light at the end of the tunnel, make sure it's tangible, and make sure we're all feeling the warmth of it as we get there. When the light gets too hot, it's done.
Damn.
You know?
Yeah, man.
Right. That's a good analogy, isn't it? Like
it is.
Once you fly, don't be Icarus. Once you fly too close to the sun, you're ruining things. You know?
And damn. Oh, can we geek out for a minute?
Yeah.
Let's geek out about some gear.
You and me, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
This can go stupid, by the way. Because I let you lead.
Please. Okay. All right. Guitar tones, because I fucking love your guitar tones.
You always said that to me, man. I gotta say, William would stop me. He'd be in the rehearsal space with me, not even 11 minutes, and bless him, I'd riff around, and then I'd stop, and he'd just be looking at me, and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Dude, like you are my favorite guitar tone." It's crazy. Thank you so much for that throughout the year.
Man,
I never forget you for that. But yeah, go ahead. What was the question?
Okay, guitar tones. I know. I want everybody to know what kind of guitar amps that you were using back in the day. And are you still using those guitar amps?
So that's really controversial, because for the longest time there, I was a Line 6 artist.
Right.
And me being a tone head, right? I mean, I'm working, I come from the school of Dave Jarrett and Brian Karlstrom. And as we said earlier, you know, even when I was recording with cheap equipment, I still use, you know, tube amps.
Oh, okay.
You know,
okay.
Right. And that was back then. Now, once Line 6 developed this new product, it was called there was two versions of it. There was the Pod XT, and then there was the Pod X3, which is the same as the XT, but there was two of them in there, so you could combine amps. When they created that, they used an engine for their modeling that at the time, we're talking like 2000, I want to say like 8 onwards, or 5 to 8 onwards, was untouchable, and I could not fucking believe its tones. Now, I didn't use Line 6 stuff for recording unless it was like really intense color guitar parts where I'd rather like model the tone rather than take the hour and lose inspiration of building the pedal board out for it or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Like I would use modeling because it was good, and it was beyond good enough for that. But for recording main guitar tones, are you talking about a particular? Oh no, another question. Yeah, so it was then and now. So I use I'm gonna assume, because one of the things we connect on, we played together, like we just talk about simple rock right now, high gain tones.
Yep,
absolutely. You know, if I am going for that, you know, dark, gritty sort of, you know, hardcore thing, you know, you know, I'd be going into a lot of Mesa Boogies, you know, if I wanted more mid-range, you know, from it, a la say the tones of like, what the hell? I keep calling them by their first name, Burn the Priest. What are they called now?
Oh,
Randy's band. Randy Blythe's band.
Oh, Lamb of God.
Lamb of God.
Yeah.
So Lamb of God, for instance, those tones are like Mesa Boogie Mark IVs, I think.
Yeah.
And they have a really tight, mid-range. I mean, just think about 11th Hour, man, that song, right? It's like they have that bridge where it's like and all of a sudden the drums come in, it's like like those tones, you ain't gonna hear that pick sound unless you have something strong like that. So Mark II, like the Mark series, Mark II, Mark IVs, Mark Vs, I'd use for focus. If I wanted something like really like old school thrice, like dark and heavy, that'd be like the rectifiers, like the you know, triple rectifier is a bit much. I really love the focus of the single rec and the dual rec. When I wanted brilliance, I would use like tones that had a lot of sheen, still high gain, I
Right.
would most certainly go with my JCM 800s and 900s.
Mm.
What's awesome about the guitar tones for Dead End Amelia's recordings
Yeah.
is all of the ones that are on Point of No Return, which is the second EP.
Right.
That was pretty much all Marshall JCM 800, but the tones that are on with a tube screamer in front of it,
Right.
but all the tones on you're not Sound of Awakening, the last record we did.
Yep.
That was intense. That took me half a day to build. What it was 2 full stacks, and holy shit, it was 3 full stacks. And
What?
yeah, well, one of them was the Marshall JCM 800. Sorry, they're all half stacks. Was a JCM 800 from 1981, and it was actually from the UK. I had to get it retrofitted for our electricity in LA. So JCM 800 with its original cabinet, and then the other amp that was set up was I actually had to borrow this amp from a friend. It was the Blackface Mesa Boogie dual rectifier with its oversized Mesa cab, and then the Framus Cobra from Germany with that metal grate. Remember I turned the amp on to be all red?
Yep.
That guy?
Yep. Yeah.
So the Marshall ran, so every single song on that record was a combo of 2 amps at any given moment. And it was the JCM 800 was on every song, and depending on where I wanted to tilt the tone, it would be the JCM and the dual rectifier combined, or the JCM and the Framus Cobra combined, depending on the tones that I would want. Framus Cobra, if anyone was curious what that sounds like, listening to I forgot what fucking record this was. It was the Kill Switch record that has Rose of Sharon on it.
Oh.
Like that. That's that one. That record had I think End of Heartache too, right? Is on that record.
Yeah.
That record is the Framus Cobra.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So yeah, those tones were a combination of them. When I'm doing stuff that's a bit cleaner or more Americana, sort of if I'm going for like that Tom Petty sound or Oasis or something like that. Yeah. Like my favorite amp in the whole world. Like if I was desert islanded, even though I'm a metal head, like if I was desert islanded, my favorite amp of all time is the Vox AC30 from England, particularly the late 60s models where they refine the top boost circuit. That's like actually like my favorite amplifier of all time. And so I tend to use the Vox AC30 a lot. If I wanted to cut more or have more pick attack, I'll go to the smaller Vox AC15. The Vox amps, I just love that sound. So if anyone was wondering, think, Roger May of Queen, right? Yeah. Think the Beatles, think Oasis, that kind of thing. So these are all classic amps. I mean, you could have asked me the same thing about my recording equipment, like my outboard gear. Yeah. It's all vintage. Like it's the same stuff that I just took from my mentors and their mentors and their mentors, and we're using the same stuff to make the same rock and roll. I mean, I'll only deviate if there's a boutique amp company or something that I'm working with or something like that. All right. For instance, to get really geeky on this Billy Driscoll record, my guitar player for the record, I hired a gentleman called Eddie Haddad. He was the guitar player. He's played with a lot of people, but he's best known as the most recent guitar player for Eddie Money. 2 Tickets to Paradise.
Okay. Right? All right. Yeah.
So he came in and he brought this fucking sick. I'm going to plug him. The gentleman here in Nashville, he's an amp maker. He's called Kevin Shaw. So Eddie Haddad brought this amp in. It's sitting in there right now. If it wasn't so heavy, I'd bring it over here. Right. And plus I already lifted my weights in front of you and Steve. But I was going to say, that amplifier is 2 amps in one. There's a Fender Super Champ in one side, and the other side is a Fender Deluxe. Right. We mic'd them both, turned them all on, and it was this beautiful sound. So, yeah, if anyone that's understanding any of this geek talk, I'm talking about all the classic amps that we all hear on every record. I mean, I'm not that precious about it. Like, I don't have to be. It doesn't have to be a unique amp because the tone proven by Eddie Van Halen picking up shitty guitars and sounding the same is all inside you. You know,
Yeah.
it's all inside you.
Man.
I mean, you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, those amps are the conduits, but I mean, it comes down to the person. So I don't get too precious about the amps. It's the same amps we've been hearing for years, decades.
Okay. I have another question for you. I know it's another guitar question, but
Good.
I wanted to find out something, how you feel about fractals or Kempers. And do you use them?
Right. So fractal, the fractal stuff. So Kemper is a different thing altogether because it's a profiler. I don't know if you knew the difference, but do you know the difference between the profiler and the modelers?
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So this is good. This is good because this will be education for some people who are learning. So the Kemper product is a profiler. We're going to put that to the side burner. The fractal alongside Line 6 Helix, which is the current iteration of the Line 6 product flagship. So we have fractal, we have the Helix, and now a new player in the game, Neural DSP with the quad cortex.
I heard of that.
Right.
Those things sound good.
Yeah, they sound good.
Yeah, they do.
Especially, man, for your fucking band, they'd be sick because I'll explain all those different things I just mentioned right there are modelers. They have, some of them have profiling capability, but basically they're modelers. And what that means is those companies put together a fucking, badass team to go in and literally model the behavior and sound of an amplifier, a speaker, a preamp, a power amp, even down to the more advanced ones as we've gotten through the years. You could even manipulate within these modelers the state of the tubes within the amps. You might want a JCM 800, but you might want it to sound saggier like Black Sabbath. Then what you do is you just get it, you'd model a JCM 800 and you'd age the tubes and make them sag a bit, and you can get kind of closer to the Iommi thing.
Okay.
So those are modelers. And then the profiler. So Kemper it is a profiler. It doesn't do modeling at all. And what profilers do is you could almost argue it's the same thing, but they're not capturing the same stuff. For instance, in a modeler, what's a great example? Okay, a 1959 Fender Bassman. It's a popular amplifier. Great examples of usage. Adam Jones of Tool would use it and combine it with his Marshalls to add low end to his chugs and shit. Okay. Now, the old Fender Bassman, if I'm not mistaken, has a 3-band EQ on the head. So it's a low, it's a mid, it's a high. Now, not all EQs do this, but due to its design, for instance, on the Bassman, it has what's called a tilt EQ. So you might set the bass where you like it, and now you got this nice low end. You might set the treble, now you got this nice sparkle. But you might want to manipulate the mid-range because it's maybe too cutting or too ear fatiguing. When you manipulate the mid-range, it changes the EQ curve of the bass and treble. So it's called a tilt EQ. And sometimes that's favorable, sometimes it's not, but it's just how it is and whatever. Good modelers go that deep. The tubes, they'll go, if there's a tilt EQ and then you've pulled up that model on a Line 6 Helix and you start fucking with the mid-range, it tilts the other ones. It emulates even the old circuit. Okay, so that's modeling. Profiling takes a literal snapshot of great example. Dean brings in Vox AC30, puts a 57 on one of the speakers, SM57 on one of the speakers to get a little bit of sparkle. Maybe I put a 421 on another speaker to get some oomph from the other speaker, and I'm going to run them through my Abbey Road preamps over here, and then maybe into an LA2A compressor that I have sitting over here, and it has this really sick sound. Okay, the Kemper will go awesome. You want it to, and then what you do is you start this process, and the Kemper feeds these weird blips and blops and bleeps and through the amp chain, the preamp chain, and all this, and it comes back with this analog data to the Kemper that it learns it to a way that if you take a guitar and you plug into the Kemper, you are the way it's supposed to work is you're now playing through that AC30. Like the soul of it captured. But here's where I don't like Kempers.
Okay.
See, you know, you might be a drummer primarily, but you do understand that. Let's say you're fucking on you're in some sound check and you're with ErnieC, and he's like playing through some high gain shit, and maybe you guys start talking to your sound guy, so maybe he's bored, he's waiting, he turns down maybe he's on high gain, but he turns down his volume knob on the guitar, and the gain goes down, it gets kind of tubby sounding, right? So the gain structure and the sound of the guitar changes the amp's reactions to that volume knob, right?
Right.
Okay. The profiler, in my experience, okay, they can try to argue this all you want. It snapshots that moment of where things are. So if I deviate that fucking volume knob, it goes, what's going on? That's not what happened. And it doesn't sound the same. So that's why I will prefer modelers, because they emulate all of those real human and old circuit behaviors, whereas the profiler just gives you like the one thing.
Okay.
I've said this before. You'll love this analogy. I hope it brings some levity and some entertainment to the podcast, which is this. When I described the use of the Kemper, when I was producing that To Whom It May record, and Jonathan Jordan came in and he was really proud of his Kemper, and he brought it in. I did use it for a couple things.
Right.
But I once described it like this. It was my first chance to really get to know it and play through it. And I said, okay, imagine you're like, because you know the concept of little boys always find their dad's Playboys at some point and have questions, right? Well, I'll put it like this.
All right.
You and I both remember Jenna Jameson.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay. So without going too far into that, I'm just gonna say, imagine if you're like this teenage kid with dreams and you're learning about yourself, and you were given Jenna Jameson and she was your girlfriend, and she was like pure and virgin and perfect, and she says you can have the best time with me in your life, and now you're in the middle of it, you're like, I can't believe this is incredible, right? But here's the problem. She's warm, smells right, and all that. She's looking at you, and she's got all the right reactions to everything. It's very, everything's right. But here's the problem. She ain't blinking or breathing. That's weird.
Yeah.
That's what a Kemper is to me.
I get you now. Okay.
See
all
what I'm
right.
saying?
Thanks for clarifying that for me. Because
with Jenna, yeah, you're welcome. It makes sense, didn't it?
It did. No, it did. It's like, thanks for doing that. You know what I mean?
Like everything feels right and passionate in the moment, but after a certain while, you're like, wait a minute, blink or something. That's fucked.
Right.
And it's her going. It's her going. Would you like me to blink from this point on? Yes, but oh my god, like get me off this Android. This is crazy.
Right. Oh man. Okay. Let's jump into studio stuff. Your DAW software. What do you, I don't know if you can say it or not. Like what do you use?
Oh, I totally can. So there is no question that I am one of the most aggressive, hold the flag way up proponents for Pro Tools. I will continue to be forever, only because of this. Again, if we reference other times in this podcast, I've said. I come from an old school background. That doesn't mean that Pro Tools is an old DAW. It's very much with the times, and its improvements are incredible. I'm going to touch on that in a second. But the thing is that when you come from the world of real recording with real engineers, Pro Tools acts, looks, has a workflow as if the console,
Right. Okay.
And so we're used to it in that way. And so for real engineers that work real rooms, Pro Tools makes the most sense. So that's why, like, when the CPUs got better and the plugins started to sound more real, you got guys like Andrew Sheps and even me who are like able to like mix your hit record on a laptop and make it on a 747, and it sounds like we mixed it at fucking East West on a Neve or something. Like we can do that now. And but Pro Tools allows us to see it and react and do our thing as real engineers with no weirdness in the way. Now, when it comes to pre-production, and that means we've got to come up with ideas fast. We've got to, and all that. Pro Tools is not good. I don't like it. So, so I use Logic during pre-production. One of the reasons why is this. Let's say you and I were writing some tune.
Yeah.
And it's a ballad. And you know, let's say you look over to me and you're like, man, it's just crazy. Like, Dean, I don't think we thought about this, but what do you think of like if an upright bass instead of that flat wound P bass you're using? What would it sound if we use an upright instead? And I'm like, and I go, oh, that's interesting. Fingers or bow? And you're like, oh shit, bow in the verses, fingers for some punch in the chorus. Awesome. I make 2 clicks on Logic, that fucking upright comes up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 2 clicks, and it does the whole track, upright bass loaded, and now the whole keyboard's like mapped out for like, you know, finger or bow, whatever I want. I mean, I think I have to go another step for that, but that's my point. You know, and it's a great way to test the idea now so we can kill it or keep it. In Pro Tools, that process would have taken me a good solid 4 minutes. That is 2 minutes longer than it takes to fucking, that's 3.5 minutes longer than it takes to forget a star hook in your head. You know? And why the fuck would I do that to the room? So I train myself to become a monster at the use of Logic. For pre-production. And then once it gets down to really deep editing and mixing in the box and anything like that, I then, you know, I then port everything over to Pro Tools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering that.
Good question.
Okay. Here's another thing. How do you feel about the recording? You know, like I know like the old days, you know, like drums were always first to lay down. But how do you feel about like everything else is done and then drums last? How do you feel about that? And I can see that you don't like that.
Well, I mean, it's pretty relentless logic. I mean, like, how do you expect us? I'm talking about us as drummers, right?
Yes.
How do you expect us to come in and keep time when you've kept time to nothing?
Right.
All we're doing is flamming all over the place with that bass player's hand. I mean, what the fuck now? Obviously, the fix is, okay, real life situation, hypothesis.
Okay.
Hey, this production got really weird. I'm going to fly out to Baltimore. I'll hire a studio nearby. I want you to play on it. I think it needs you.
Right.
I'm sorry to tell you this. For some fucking reason, we had to record the tracks, sans drums first. Obviously, the thing I would say is, I mean, I'd probably tell a really dirty joke about how much I hate the artist for it first, off record, and then I would say, okay, Will, we're pros, you know the drill, and I'd say, you know, I don't have to tell you this, just I'll turn the bass up and the rhythm guitars up.
Yeah. Just
follow it the best you can, make it sound like you were there first. I would just say that
with no click track.
No. I mean, there'd be a click track. I'd ask you. That's a good question.
Okay.
Ask you, like, is there we need a click track for count-in. We need a click track for the rests. If you really want it to be in there, here's your personal mixer. Do whatever you want. Just please keep in mind, you can't play to the click the whole time because these musicians were breathing all over it. You know, like, so do your best to ignore that. And let me give you the rhythm instruments. Now, let's 2025 the answer.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Not to say that didn't work for today, but like in 2025, we look at bands like late career Bring Me the Horizon, Architects. We look at bands like Bad Omens. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You look at stuff like that. Actually, recording the drums after is not a bad move. Why? A lot of that stuff tends to be loop based because a lot of them fancy themselves EDM fucking people too. I don't know how long that fad's gonna last, but you know, my point is that because of that, right, there's gonna be a lot of loops too. Even if the loop is just a hi-hat topper, that does that, like maybe the beat is like da-dun, da-ga-dun, da-dun, da-ga-dun, but there's like a hi-hat topper that goes like something like that.
Yeah.
And then the thing is, already, if you know that type of production is going to be a part of it, likely the drums were programmed during pre-production because that's just how that production goes. And And since we are aware that we're going to use loops or like 808 beats or whatever's going on, or trance beats with it, or jungle beats, or whatever, that are going to go along with those drums, we're already quantizing the shit out of the fake drums, because you can't flam those. You're going to have phase problems with a hi-hat against the hi-hat topper, with the snare against the jungle snare, with the kick drum against the fucking EDM kick. So we're already squashing them. So at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I'm coming to you with this Black Omens type production, a Bad Omens type production.
Okay.
And I go to you and I'm like, here, I'm going to show up at the studio. Just play your best to it. Give me the, your fills, be you, give me your identity. And it's going to get gridded anyway. And once it gets gridded, it's still going to lock in like those original drums were. It's all comes down to, the answer to this question is a pain in the ass, or it's expected based on the type of production approach getting there.
Yeah. Oh man. How you feel about EDM music, man?
Say again?
How you feel about EDM music?
I mean, that question is interesting, right? Because when we ask about certain types of rock, like there's a glass ceiling, because rock is a sound.
Yeah.
And the thing with EDM is you're covering a huge swath of things, right? Because while some purists might only put certain genres of electronic music into EDM, some people will say EDM, and that kind of includes anything from drum and bass to like garage to old school dubstep to like Skrillex style dubstep.
Yeah.
It'll include all that. I mean, for me, if you listen to a lot of my productions, as you know, and you even highlighted this in your questionnaire, because you know me well, is I work in a very huge swath of musical genres. As a matter of fact, one of the records I just we're in the middle of finishing now, but like there's like 3 singles that were released. The artist is called Jessie, Jessi, Jessie Jae Joplin. Remember her?
Yeah, I remember Jessie. Yeah,
Jessie. So she came to me recently, hired me again to make some new singles for her. We made an EP, and she, because back then when you and I were starting DEA, I was doing her stuff, and she kind of had a Gwen Stefani's type sound, which was really awesome, because like you don't expect that coming out of a black girl doing rock, right? It was cool,
right?
And like, so she's doing that, and then the music was very much of the time when she had to be hired me then, which was like very post Paramore, in the emo realm kind of thing. Now, since I seen her over the last 10 years, she's become like a somewhat well-to-do house DJ in LA. And so when she came to me, she wanted to do another EP where she's the singer and there's songs, but it was crazy because she wanted me to make them house-based. So if you go and you listen to any of the most recent Jessie J. Joplin material, you'll actually hear it's EDM first, and it's like there's a lot of house moments. There's some weird shit that I did in there. Like one of them, you don't expect it. It breaks into a like a really like deep neo soul like R&B thing, man. And there's a gospel choir. Like I went crazy. Yeah. So
man.
so the quick answer to that question is like I love it all, man. I mean, like I have my own list I could have gone through with like DJs and electronic composers, anywhere from like ATB to BT to like Trent Reznor and everything in between, like they all are a part of my library. I literally love it all, and I have the skill to pull it all off. Okay. I literally without I don't even know if I'm NDA'd on this or not, but just to be careful, I got a text last night from a well-to-do anime studio that has a lot of very classic titles, and they asked me last night to make dance remixes to modernize all the themes so that they can sell them as new recordings as a record to bring new audiences back to those classic animes. Yeah. So and I'm good at doing that stuff. So I'll be doing dance remixes. So yeah, I love that world,
dude.
I love that world.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Okay, one more last question, and we're gonna geek out on drums, of course.
I love it.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, your choice of drums, and I already know the answer to this, but this is probably still Pearl.
Yeah, I mean that's expanded a lot for other reasons with snares and stuff. But go ahead.
Cymbals, I know is Paiste, right?
Paiste and Zildjian, depending on the usage. We'll get into that.
Nice. Okay. Let's jump into it. Recording wise with drums, overheads, like what kind of room do you look for recording? I'm just trying to teach all the kids out there, for recording drums and making them sound the best that they can.
Cool.
What kind of room do you like recording drums in?
Well, obviously that's subject based. So why don't you give me an example? Like what are we going to record and what drum sound are we going for?
Well, let's go for a bigger sound. Let's say if like if they had a house that had barely any furniture in it, would you consider that kind of room?
So when you say bigger sound, are we going like almost arena rock or something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, okay, this is where it gets interesting because I want to
Okay.
be very careful and I want to be inclusive to a lot of the new kids that they're not going to have that hit because we're not raising drums tracking engineers the way we used to,
Yeah.
and so what we're doing is we're doing our best to educate these kids and these people. I mean, they don't have to be kids, just like these people that are new to understanding how to get close to those rooms. One of the first things you do is you have to understand how the classic iconic records did it first in 2025 onward. You have to understand that first so you have ways of emulating that. One of the obvious things is the room itself. I want to be very clear about something with microphones, guys, that people don't realize. Microphones first, which is okay, there's a microphone in my face, right?
Right.
There's one sitting next to you. But here's the thing. You have to think of a microphone. Because you're always fighting it because you put a subject in front of it, but you have to understand the microphone is dumb and it only knows one thing: record the room. That's all it. Every microphone is recording a room. You're lucky whatever you do to that room to negate it, that the microphone is getting only the thing in front of it. The microphone really just was recording a room. It's scary when you think of it that way, right?
Right.
So with drums, if you want to get that big rock drum sound, the room is part of it. Okay. You mentioned a scenario of an unfurnished house. Obviously, things like how big the house is matters. The thing you got to look at is, does that room have an energy to it? And what I mean by that is if we went into a room, no matter what the size, and the thing was covered in Corning 703 acoustic foam, it would be anechoic. So there would be no energy, right? You hit the snare drum, the sound would come from it. It would hit one of the walls and end there. Well, the big drum sound comes from clever capture of those room behaviors, which is the things that happen after the sounds hit the fucking walls and the ceilings and the floors and interact with each other. So if you want a big drum sound, you're going to need the room to do it. Okay, the best question in 2025. Okay, Mr. Dichoso, get it, but what if we don't have access to that airplane hangar you're fucking talking about? Well,
Right.
Great, because at the end of the day, today's reverb plugins. I'm going to plug one now, which is my favorite of all time. Been using it for many years. As a company's called Audio Ease, and the reverb is called Altiverb. Now, William knows very well the tracking room that I had at my home was very intimate and tight.
Yes.
It wasn't a big room, but there are giant drum sounds not only on the Dead End Amelia records we've been talking about, but even you remember I did a fucking spot on version of Simple Boy by Carnival. Remember
Oh
that?
my gosh. Yeah.
You A/B it against the one that won a Juno Award. Forrester Saville engineered that. You're like, how the fuck? I got it spot on.
I don't know how you did that.
Yeah, that's my ear, man. But here's the thing: those drum sounds are me setting up, and even during recording, guys, don't be afraid to run these during recording. I set up an auxiliary track or bus track, as you might call in Logic, and I Altiverb allows you to go in there and you can choose the studio, because they went all over the world. They went to East West in LA. They went to all these popular studios all over Europe, and they modeled those rooms impeccably. You can leave it live during recording, and as you're getting your drum sounds, you can auxiliary send your drum sounds to that room sound, so that the drummer, even though, and William, you might not remember this, but you were getting giant drum sounds in your ears when you were recording with me.
Yeah.
because what was going on is I was putting your drum set in the middle of like this like concert hall in like Belgium, you know.
Oh my God.
And then sending it back to your ears. So if you closed your eyes, you were like on that stage, dude, you know. So
Dude.
if you don't have the room, Altiverb is not the only one that does it, but you know, in a lot of these more advanced ones, you can choose the microphones that are being used, where they are placed in the room, in terms of like, are the, you know, if you're in an opera house, are they in one of the balconies? Are the mics on the stage with the kit, in front of the drummer, behind the drummer, facing away from the drummer? Like, you get to choose all that. So you're basically able to create your dream room. You just auxiliary send those drums to it, sneak that room up, and you are sounding like you're in that room. This is going to be useful during tracking to inspire the drummer's performance, and obviously useful in a mix where you couldn't afford to get a giant room. So that's number one, is that room has to be everything for the giant drum sound. You know, and another suggestion I would have is, if you have the inputs available to you, is, you know, set up even a second coincident pair of room mics. So I'll put it like this. Imagine you have drum set here and we're looking like top view.
Yeah.
And you have two stereo mics facing the kit that are, say, 6 feet away from the kit, and then ones that are 18 feet away from the kit. And the cool thing about that is you can ride those faders up and down in a mix. So if you want things to get really big in a chorus, they both come up. You want to go intimate and diverse, you automate them down. You get as tight or as big as you want. You have options for the bigness because of the two different pairs of microphones in the recording.
Do you get a lot of drummers or other guys that are engineers to get help from you with their sound, with the drums, especially the drums? Because
Yeah.
me and you, I think it's very important to record drums first. Sorry.
Of course.
But I know some guys don't do it like that, and I've been in those situations too. But to get those sounds, do you help other people, you know, to try to help them achieve that kind of sound that you're just talking about?
100%. I mean, I have no agenda for gain for myself from this, because I'll tell you, my big motive, especially, I mean, you know, we were just talking to your buddy Steve before we started,
Right.
even with his stuff. I mean, the reason why I like to impart what I do know is because the more guys like me do that, the more guys like me are running into talent we really need when it's time to make a product. Like, I want people to glean as much as they can, you know, from the old school, while they're refining their new school knowledge, so that we are creating iconic sounds again. So yes, I will. Anyone that need, you know, as long as I have the time and I've got the energy to do it, and you know, a glass of bourbon nearby, I will talk to you anything. Yeah.
You still drink Johnny Walker?
That's awesome you ask. You remember that was my daily for a while.
It was.
and you know, I'll tell you something funny. I still drink scotch. That's a scotch. I still drink scotch.
Right.
But I switched to bourbons as my normal daily, or my normal, like, you know, sort of go-to, because while I was drinking Johnny Walker Black every day,
Yep.
I started to perfect I love cooking Italian. And I go really deep with it. And the thing is I was starting to perfect my dairy-based sauces at some point in time, 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would be making dairy-based sauces using lots of butter and cream and things like this, pesto, whatever it is. And I would while I'm learning how to do it or testing it out or tasting, I would drink the Johnny Walker, and there wasn't enough of a cut in the Johnny Walker, so it would add this terrible taste to the fats that were left behind from the dairy. So
and you get deep with this.
I get deep.
Yeah, you do.
By the way, this is how I apply to my mixing as well. I think of cooking when I'm mixing, and I was gonna say bourbon when I'm making dairy sauces and I'm testing shit out. Bourbon, or a really good citrus forward like Pinot Grigio or Riesling wine, it feels like it squeegees the fat from the tongue. So every new spoon of that dairy based sauce feels new.
Damn.
scotch tastes gross with fucking my dairy with my creamy pesto that I make.
Right.
It tastes fucking nasty with fucking Walker Black. Yeah.
Man,
Wait, back, yeah, sorry.
ladies and gentlemen, I just want to let you know this dude is an awesome cook, awesome chef.
Man,
But yeah,
I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
take pride in it, man. But yeah, so that's yeah, so yeah, sure. I'll give advice with Walker Black nearby. Yeah, I will. As long as I'm not eating creamy pesto or a vodka olorosa sauce. Yes.
Right. Oh man. Man, is there anything that you want to plug, or like, or if you had questions for me, just to change things up or whatever in it all through the years or whatever.
Both.
Okay.
I saw that on your questions that you might have asked me that might have the opportunity to ask you stuff, which I think is great. I think it's a great idea because I think you're an interesting guy, and I know that if I ran into you and didn't know you on this podcast and I saw you, I would want to know more about you.
Oh
Especially,
man.
I'll tell you what, I thought about this, Will,
Okay.
because last night, or not last night, but a few nights ago when you asked me to be a part of this, I had said earlier off camera that I was reminded that you were doing this podcast, and I was like, oh, that's right, William started doing this.
Right.
And I went back and started watching just because a lot of it is I just miss talking to you and hearing you and your knowledge and talking to people, and your excitement's great.
Oh man.
But but here's the thing. I also was thought about something else. Okay, do I think that someone new coming to see you doesn't know you would be just as engaged? I absolutely do. But
Right.
it's really important you guys have to. Even if anyone listening to this doesn't know much about William, even if you went and just typed in, okay, tell you what, go look at when Body Count covered that Slayer tune.
Oh shit.
And just watch William match bullshit and like get to know, just a really quick dose of this guy. But he's way more versatile than that. But it's just so much fun. You guys see William play drums. A lot of people that are watching this, they might know your history, but go experience this motherfucker. It's something else. One of my favorite things is a song we have in Dead End Amelia called "Fly," and one of the verses, William, man, it's awesome. He was playing the hi-hat, doing his fucking arms in the air shit. I don't know. Just gotta watch him play. Go do that. And so, so here we are. Here's my question for Will. I get to ask Will a question. This is cool. So getting to know you for me and also for the people that are watching.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You and I have a history in progressive rock together.
Yes.
We also know that even if we didn't do other genres together, we know we share a lot in common, and that if you and I ended up somewhere else, we'd be doing just well together on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this, there's that adage when it comes down to musicians or producers or musicians talking about musicians. There's always this adage that when it comes to African-American musicians, that it's just like that token kid from like South Park or whatever, right? He didn't know, all of a sudden he knew how to play this, whatever. And there's this thing, but okay, we all know that, which is cool. But here's the thing, right? Is that generally speaking, like when I start thinking of like black drummers coming up, if I go beyond the big band guys and I start thinking about black drummers, I think of pocket guys. I think of like Max Williams. I think of like shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of pocket dudes, not to say you aren't one of them. It's just, man, it's so interesting coming up in the family that you did, that you and your brother got to a place and what it turned you into. Man, this is crazy because people think I'm joking. People think I'm joking when I say this, but every drummer, okay, first thing, the caveat is that every drummer has a tendency inside the studio, and it's not necessarily a bad one. It's just how they kind of are until they listen to the producer and get shaped.
Yeah.
For me, like, I think we all, when we were younger drummers, overplayed until we learned that lesson. So we're not including that.
Yeah.
We're talking about we aged past that, we matured. Okay. Me, I tend to be too, like, I got chops. I got chops.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
But here's the thing: when I'm hired as a drummer, I'm known as the drummer that's too safe. You have to unlock me, because here's the thing: I will play directly. I will phase out the click with my snare drum. I'll play directly on it, and all that. But you have to tell me, Dean, on this one, you got to push the beat, or Dean, you got to be a little sticky and get behind it, as if you took, a fucking a Vicodin, before you did the track or whatever. And I get those references. We all have those tendencies. I tend to be too safe until I'm pushed. You are super energetic until you're shaped. You play with an energy. I mean, let's just put it like it is. I mean, I am the age now you were when we were doing Dead End Amelia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is, you mid-40s, right?
No. I was in my 30s. Yeah, I was in my 30s.
You turned 40 in the middle of it, maybe.
I probably did, yeah.
Yeah. So my don't you have 10 years on me? How old are you now?
I'm 54.
Yeah, I'm 44.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
Okay, no, so maybe you're right. That's true. So okay, I get it. But the point is, right, like, it was so inspiring to me, and I gotta say something. This is a personal thing. It's a question still for you, but I just have to say, I was so tired from everything I'd seen and been through as a musician, in the industry, not as a producer, not as a studio owner and a product supervisor, but like just as a musician. I had my chops. I did my practice, and I built up my vocabulary and all these instruments. Yeah, sure. But when William came around, and he's 10 years older than me, he played with an energy, a hunger, and a gumption that reminded me, Dean, that's who you really are too.
Yeah.
Like, play with abandon, play like William, and you made me play drums more on off hours. It wasn't a competitive thing. It was just like, man, this guy reminds me that I can do it too. Go enjoy it. Even if I'm not recording anything, just go enjoy the instrument.
Yeah.
And so you are normally a pusher, not in a bad way. Just when the minute you get in and you're cold, you've got your first coffee down. What happened to your blackness on that? You just like you pushing, and that's not to say you don't have pocket.
Right.
Just, like, no, but seriously, what is it in your life? Like, who are you listening to that made you octane bulletproof drummer? I want to know.
Okay, Stuart Copeland.
Shit, that's a good one. Yeah.
Stuart Copeland is a pusher. That's what I was learning, his style, like that. It wasn't Kiss. It was Stuart Copeland. And I hate, and I noticed that, like, I was always wondering why bands push their songs like they did live compared to the real recording of a record. And someone, pointed this out to me. It's like, oh, they do that for live stuff, just to have that little push a little bit. And I don't know why, like, he was definitely one of them that pushed a lot. And I noticed that later, especially when I met you, I was listening to more Copeland. I was just listening to him and listening to like a lot of his live stuff, and they were pushing hard. But for that, like, because I was listening to more rock than compared to R&B and gospel.
Right.
But even though I love hip hop at that same time, the rock element still took over. For some reason, the rock music, like, if I was going to do rock, I was doing rock, and not saying that, I couldn't play the R&B stuff. It wasn't.
No, you and I would lock in sometimes, and it'd be there. We'd be there. Yeah.
But like the R&B music for me, wasn't my thing. And I can say that with when I was in, when I was going to church, doing the gospel thing.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Going through that. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I never really stayed in that. I kept on doing rock music. And just learning. But the other thing too, I was tired of people telling me no, that I couldn't play that kind of music. And that's what pissed me off. And that's the reason why I kept on going doing rock music. Just because I wasn't their skin tone or
Yep.
whatever, you know, and
Yep.
that literally, you know what, I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna do better than you. So
Yep.
that was the thing for me, you know, especially for rock music. And I know a lot of these, you know, these guys that do rock music, you know, that are black, you know, but sometimes I get annoyed with it. Um, that's probably, you know, like, and I love, you know, there's two in particular, that I love these dudes. These dudes are, you know, they're friends of mine, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I'm different from them. Actually, it's just three of them, that I'm different with them. But I don't put gospel chops over that crap. You don't need gospel chops over rock music. And that's, to me and my brother talk about that all the time. And that you know, annoys the shit out of us. You know, like, it's cool, you know, but dude, man, play rock, man. Just play
Right.
rock. You know, so I'm trying not to get too heated about it. But yeah,
You're consistent. We had the same heated conversation 10 years ago. I mean, this is
right,
consistent. Yeah.
right. So that's you know, that's what, you know, for me, it annoys me the same thing, just like a drummer that, okay, you get handed, you know, like this job you're supposed to do, and here, you know, and there like might be big hits or whatever for this band, and you don't play the fills that was on that record. I'm
Right.
sorry, you know, I had to learn your stuff, you know, like
Yeah.
when, you know, like
Look,
playing, you know, from, you
I'm
know,
sorry.
like, no, bro, you know, like that's the way it was, you
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
learn the parts that are on for that record. That's what makes that record work.
Yeah.
So that was my thing, and it annoys me now, you know, still when drummers don't do that. You
Yeah.
know, when drummers do that, it feels like a disrespect to that original drummer. I still
Right.
try to, you know, to emulate, you know, like, you know, when, you know, Vic was for, you know, for Body Count, some of the stuff that he was doing and that stuff. But I try not to get away, you know, from that and overplay and disrespect the song.
Right. Right.
That's I hope I answered some part of your question. You know what I mean?
No,
So,
that was
you
great.
know,
That's actually a really rich answer. I mean, it's just cool because you are so different, you know, from the expectations. Are you what's going on with Ice-T's band now, and what's going on with that? Are you active? You're taking a minute. Are you guys gonna play soon?
yeah, we're playing soon. We just released a new record. But I mean, this week actually, I leave for Florida. And this is going to turn out a month later. But yeah, I have a show out in Florida, you know, this week on Thursday. Um, but yeah, you know, we're still active. We only have 4 shows this year.
Okay.
Because, you know, everybody's getting busy right now, and probably next year we're probably even more busier than that. So we'll see.
Do your best to text me if you remember it. If you ever do in Nashville and I don't catch it, and
Oh,
I'm sure before I answer your next question, which is the plug thing, I'm sure no one else in your podcast has done this yet. Can we just everyone fucking take a goddamn minute here? And I'm pointing at that Grammy behind him. Last thing, that is Williams, by the way.
oh, you
Talk
want to see
about
that?
that. Congratulations. What the
Dude.
fuck? How did you get this?
Okay. All right.
I want everyone to know this.
Oh, man.
That is
Okay.
Homeboy's fucking Grammy, dude.
All right.
Dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Huge.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you just get a quick how'd that happen?
We did a song called Bum Rush. And that was, man, we were going through some bands, man. That was even on that list, and Meshuggah was on that. I was
Holy
like,
shit.
yeah, Meshuggah. I forgot the other band. Sorry. Or Code Orange, was on that list too. And
Orange.
and I was like, I didn't bother even watching the Grammys at all.
Wait, Code Orange, those kids, those like that weird band with a girl in it, Reba's in it.
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Go
Yeah.
ahead. So I'm thinking about something else. Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't even watching it, and I heard that because I mean we got snuffed before. Um, that was 2 years before that. That was like in 2018. This is 2020, for this thing, but um I wasn't expecting it. And then my phone started blowing up. Like a good friend of mine named Tone actually was the first person to blow up my phone. Like, dude, you you won. I'm like, nah, you're lying to me. I wasn't believing that at all. But no, and I looked on the Grammys.com or whatever just to confirm it or whatever, and I'm like, oh my God. We
Yep.
actually did want it, and I'm like, like my wife's, like taking a shower or whatever, and like it's getting late in the day, like, and I'm like banging on her door like frantically, like going like, babe, like, it's like I got something to tell you. She's like, what? And I was like, it's like we actually won, and
Michelle knew before you did.
no, she didn't know.
Oh.
No, I was banging on her door just
Oh, you
letting her
tell.
know.
Wait, excuse me. Yeah,
She
yeah.
was taking a shower. I banged on the door, like,
Oh,
hey,
you were telling her. Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
I was
got
telling
it.
her.
Yeah.
But
Holy
yeah,
shit.
yeah, and like, she eventually came out and just gave me the biggest hug, and we're both crying, blah blah blah. So like, what? You actually
Yeah.
won. I'm like, wow. But I didn't think, well, I was going to actually get one. I thought Ice was just going to get one. But but
I'm
no.
glad we talked about it because I don't know if you or Steve are going to use that clip, but people need to know that about you. It's a huge accomplishment. You deserve it. You
Oh,
work so hard.
oh, thank you, dude.
It's
Thank
big.
you. Thank you,
Yeah, and
man.
you got more coming.
Oh
So
man. Thank you, dude.
look, maybe that's one you and I are on together. By the way, just because we haven't played in that band, it's only been July 23. You guys asked me this earlier when I moved here. July
Right.
23 is when I moved here, and this is part of my, I guess, part of the plug thing. We'll get there, but the point is
Yeah.
that was building the studio out, had this all built out, and then basically my dad started to see his health decline, and then I stopped. And then we spent time over there, and then we were there for so long. We stayed through the holidays, so I didn't really kind of get this thing going until like May of last year. And the point being is, now that I'm kind of back to my rhythm, meaning I've got my studio again. I work in other places, but I've got my place again, just like I had my place in Studio City.
Yep.
There's less stress going forward, being creative, and
Good.
the technology is better than it ever has been, including things like huge shout out to ERS, eRecordStudio, things like
Yes.
this.
Yes.
The reason why I'm bringing shit up like that is because, man, you better fucking believe it. Thinking about all that, like, you have never left my short Rolodex, and I'm always finding a new excuse of like, when can we, do something again? I'm just starting to get back to being an artist again.
Yeah.
Talk more about that at other times, but I was going to say, like, I'm doing original material again, and I'm still trying to find a singer for it. It's not going to be that far from what you did with me before. Just I want to do it. I want to get, if it's possible, get you involved. I was going to ask you, do you now have like a recording set up at home yet, or you don't, or the e-kit maybe?
I'm going to get an e-kit soon.
Okay.
Because I need one, and but yeah, I need to get do that really soon, and start recording myself.
Cool.
Because my brother's been pushing me a lot, like, it's like, man, get an e-kit, man, start doing this stuff at home,
Because
like,
man, because today's tech, man, like, it's not the same as it was if we got e-kits when we were like, even back during DEA. The tech is so good now, like you can get literally the cheapest e-kit. And the thing is, like I was gonna say, is you obviously want to get an e-kit that at least has mesh heads, so you're not creating tendonitis and stuff, and it's comfortable to play. At least do that. And you can get something cheap. You can get like a Simmons version for like $600 or something, but here's where it gets awesome. We're no longer dependent on the brains.
Right. Yeah.
So you can get the cheapest brain, and as long as it has the USB MIDI capability, literally, I mean, what Superior Drummer is a fucking Easy Drummer, which is a version of that.
Yeah.
$200. Steve Slade drums, and you've got Yeah, and you've got the fucking sounds that of your life on that E kit. You know, you just close your eyes and you're not playing a little shitty E kit anymore. You know, and so I mean, God, a lot of people freak out. I was just talking to someone about this 2 days ago. Spirit Box, dude, like that whole record that's got Holy Roller on it and shit. Do you know how those drums were recorded?
No.
This is gonna trip you out, dude. So homeboy played on an E kit, and all the sounds on that, I mean, it's a human playing.
Right.
All the sounds on that record are like the third default of Superior Drummer. 100% true. It's a default setting. It wasn't custom anything. It was a default setting in Superior Drummer. They just used those sounds, his MIDI performances, and that was it. Dead serious.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I gotta hurry up.
and now it's inexpensive because guess what? Back when you and I used to talk about this, I mean, the truth is you'd be hauling a fucking $5,000 V drum kit up Mount Baldy. Now it's a $600 one. It's a $40 plug-in, and it sounds better than any of the V kits we would have brought up to your house back then. You know?
Wow.
Just saying.
Wow.
I'm here for you and Steve when you want this stuff. I'm on the pulse of all this shit,
dude. Dude. Yeah,
we'll get into it, man. If you need me, I'm around.
Oh,
so,
dude, I'm gonna harass you.
I can't wait. I'm here for you. But yeah, as far as plugging anything goes, you know, as I said to you and Steve, not much. I'm again, I am blessed that you people keep hiring me.
Yeah.
But I will say I'm just proud of all the records I've been doing. And just to highlight some of the most recent ones. Really amazing indie rock artist out of Bristol, UK, Amel Rose. I did her last 2 records. You know, Candlebox Wolves was a really fun one for me for all kinds of reasons. You know, I'm just, you know, I'm doing my thing here. I'm really enjoying. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee now. I used to be in LA with Will.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm available. I've got a beautiful private studio, and I'm making anything from Americana and country singles and records to all the weird EDM shit and everything in between. I've got a new record for this band called Anova Skyway. So William, this vibe would be inside that whole like Carnival Tesseract thing.
Really?
You know what I mean? Yeah, and really good, really cool stuff. You hear that record? That's coming up soon. They just got done mastered in Sterling Sound. Okay. You're gonna you might have some weird questions about those guitar tones. They are the giantest guitar tones I've ever gotten in my life.
Really? Okay.
The drums are thick as shit. So Anova Skyway is coming out, and I'm just here. You know, if we're doing a sad indie track, or you know, that sounds like it was recorded in 1972, or we're going full on and we're doing, you know, you want to do North Lane and Architects and all that, I'm here for you. You want to go Chris Stapleton and do a live country record?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's do it. I just did that for Billy Driscoll from the UK. His record's coming out. We're in the middle of production now. You know, did a very old school. We went into the boonies of this beautiful studio called Spellbound Recorders in Lebanon, Tennessee. And I did a live band and recorded it all live with this beautiful engineer from LA called Orange County, called Chris Justice. He's done Everclear and a bunch of other great shit, and he was there for us. And we did full live production. I've even done records here in Nashville. If you want to go real old school, we can go all the way to tape, have it mastered for vinyl. So whatever anyone needs, I bring something really unique to the table. Will can tell you because of just my undying passion for all styles and every instrument and every way you play. And if it's passionate, I don't care if it's one note. If it's passionate, I want to be a part of it.
Yeah. Damn. Dean. Thank you for being on this show, man.
I said to Steve, I said to your producer, it was an excuse to talk to you where I knew we were sitting here for an hour at least.
Right.
So I took it for that reason. But thank you so much for wanting to talk to me. And, you know, I've never been asked to do something like this to this degree where People
All
get
right.
to actually kind of get to know me. And you know what? Probably wouldn't have gone too well because if it was anyone else I didn't like,
Yeah.
I would say fuck you a lot and I would have hung up.
That's awesome, dude.
Peace. But because it was you, you brought the best out of me, man. I was honest and thank you so much for the opportunity, brother. You know,
Dude, I just wanted to show you off, man. You know, like that's the bottom line, man. You know, so because I mean, I love your work. You know that.
you too.
You know
Yeah,
that.
man.
You definitely know that. But man, thank you, Dean, for doing this for me, man. Love you, man.
Love you too, brother.
All right, everybody, Dean Dichoso. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I don't know why I went for that, but I thought it felt
right. Blackson.
Yes. Rock and roll, man.
All right, man. Later on, man. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Will Dorsey Jr. Talk Music Podcast. If you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button. That little red button on there, just hit it. That will help me out tremendously. If you can also, subscribe to our YouTube channel, that will also help me. And if you wanted to download our podcast on Apple or Google or Amazon or even Spotify, you can check us out on there. Hope you guys enjoy the show.
Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, eRecordStudio, the new way musicians rehearse, record, and share their eRecord sessions on social media. Visit ERS on eRecordStudio.com. Download this amazing app on Google and Apple Apps stores.
Visit us on www.talkmusicpodcast.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Download our podcast on Apple, Google, Amazon, and Spotify.